Chapter 351. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. Little Jing Kong didn't return home until it was almost dark. When he entered the door, he took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He couldn't let Jiao Jiao see him sad for little Jean. He poked his little dimples, raised his smiling face, and entered the house cutely. Gu Jiao finished chopping the firewood and packing the herbs. When she turned around, she saw the little guy jumping over. "You're back?" she said. "Yes." Little Jing Kong ran over and stretched out his short arms. "Jiao Jiao, I'll help you. You take this." Gu Jiao scooped a small ladle of herbs from the big basket and gave it to him. "Okay." Little Jing Kong happily took the ladle and carefully returned to the central room without spilling any herbs. After dinner, Gu Jiao went to pack little Jing Kong's things. The little guy always messed things up and didn't know how to put them back properly. This time, when Gu Jiao was packing, she realized that something was missing. Most of little Jing Kong's things were packed in different boxes. Gu Jiao usually didn't open those boxes privately, not because they looked shabby, but because she respected the child's privacy. However, some things were directly exposed, such as little Jin's abacus. "Jing Kong," Gu Jiao called. Little Jing Kong, who was arranging little chicks' array in the central room, came in and asked with his head tilted, "What's wrong, Jiao Jiao? Where's your abacus?" Gu Jiao asked doubtfully. Little Jing Kong rolled his eyes. "I put it in the clinic." "Really?" Gu Jiao thought for a while. "But I just cleaned up the small box you put in the clinic today. I didn't see your abacus." Little Jing Kong blinked and said, "Oh, I forgot. I lent it to Brother Chuyu. He said he would return it to me later." Little Jing Kong rarely lied. He had a good reputation, so Gu Jiao did not suspect him. After leaving the east room, little Jing Kong covered his chest and heaved a long sigh of relief. That scared him to death. He was almost discovered by Jiao Jiao. Luckily, he was a clever little devil. It rained in the evening. Gu Yan's secret guard came back to report that the road was difficult to travel. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan stayed at Nanxiang and Master Lu's house. Tomorrow, they would go directly to Qinghe Academy from there. Nanxiang and Master Lu liked Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan very much. Gu Jiao had nothing to worry about. She asked the secret guard to bring 2 sets of clean clothes for them. On the other hand, the old duke, who was encouraged by Gu Yan and Gu Jiao, felt that he had received unprecedented support. He had lived for the Zhao country and the duke's manor all his life. Except for fighting desperately on the battlefield, he had done almost nothing bold in private. He had been cautious and conscientious all his life, but perhaps because he was old and did not have many years left to live, he did not want to have regrets in this life. He had let her down as long as he lived for others. In the few days left, he did not want to let her down again. Fortunately, the army that he had cultivated for His Majesty had been trained. Gu Changqing had also grown up. The duke's manor had a successor, so he could rest assured. "Go and call the crown prince here," the old duke ordered. "Yes." The manservant went to Gu Changqing's courtyard and called Gu Changqing over. Gu Changqing looked at the old duke who was sitting on the main seat. His expression was clearly different from before. He said lightly, "It's so late. Grandfather is looking for me?" The old duke looked at him deeply. This was the grandson that he had brought up. He had poured all his heart and soul into him, more than he had poured into his son Gu Chong. And he had lived up to his expectations. He had grown up to be his ideal son. The old duke handed him 2 tokens of different quality. One was the Gu family army's token. The other was the secret army's token. "Grandfather, what is the meaning of this?" Gu Changqing asked strangely. The old marquis looked at him and sternly said, "You've grown up, and some burdens should be handed over to you. I may not be able to see the day when the Gu family army reinvigorates, but I hope that you can see that day." "Why won't I be able to see it?" Gu Changqing asked lightly. The old duke wanted to say something but hesitated. He pinched the corner of the table and said, "I have my own arrangements. You don't need to ask." Gu Changqing laughed coldly and said mockingly, Grandfather always has his own arrangements. Just like that matter back then. Finished speaking, he didn't wait for the old duke to ask him what it was and turned to leave. He accepted the token. He was a son of the Gu family. Whether it was his authority or his burden, he would spare no effort to bear it. The old duke looked at his grandson's resolute figure and sighed helplessly. Afterward, he had the manservant call for Gu Chengfeng and Gu Qinglin. They were all his grandsons, so he naturally doted on them. However, he didn't regard them as highly as he did Gu Chongqing, nor did he cherish them as much as he did Gu Yan. This was probably the sorrow of not being able to occupy both sides. He wasn't as capable as Gu Chongqing, nor was he as delicate as Gu Yan. Naturally, he received less attention. When the day of separation finally arrived, the old duke's heart was filled with reluctance. He looked at the two of them. He originally wanted to say some emotional words between grandfather and grandson, but when he saw Gu Qinglin's newly grown bald head, the corner of his mouth twitched. He couldn't say anything. He also gave the two of them a token and some family assets. The family assets were first sent to Gu Chongqing for safekeeping, and would be handed over to them on the day the two of them set up their own families. He also left something for Gu Yan. He had already sent someone to send it to the hidden guards. When the time was right, he would hand it over to Gu Yan. Gu Jiao was married. A married lady was like spilled water. He didn't leave a token for her, but seeing that she was wholeheartedly devoted to Gu Yan, he still gave her a sum of money. It was also in the hands of the hidden guards. Marquis Gu went to repair the roads and wasn't in the residence. However, the old duke didn't even think about this invisible son of his. After handing everything over, the old duke left the manor in the middle of the night. Gu Qinglin looked at the token in his hand. He didn't know what it was used for and asked in confusion, "Second brother, don't you think grandfather is acting a little strange today?" Gu Qingfeng looked at the token, then at the boundless night sky, and said thoughtfully, "Quite strange indeed." It was a dark and windy night. The bustle and liveliness of the day faded from the capital, turning it into a quiet, isolated city. In the hazy night, a dark shadow leaped onto the walls and snuck into the palace like a ghost. A group of patrolling imperial guards walked past. Ever since the assassination attempt on Grand Concubine Jing, the palace's defenses had been strengthened, and the number of imperial guards had doubled. Did you hear anything just now?" one of the imperial guards asked. His companion replied, "No, did you hear anything?" The rest of his companions shook their heads in unison. The first imperial guard scratched his head in confusion. "Maybe I heard wrong." He turned back to look at the impregnable palace walls. Apart from the patrolling imperial guards, there were also palace experts and hidden guards lying in ambush at the four corners of the walls. If someone had really snuck in, they wouldn't have gone so far as to deceive everyone, right? Let's go, let's go. Go ahead and patrol." The imperial guards marched forward in an orderly fashion. Not long after they left, a figure hidden in a tree flew in the direction of Pure Flower's palace. He was abnormally familiar with the palace's defenses, so he avoided the gazes of all the imperial guards and palace experts and successfully snuck into Pure Flower's palace. Grand Concubine Jing was currently sitting in a small meditation room, tapping on a wooden fish and chanting scriptures. Suddenly, a dark shadow flashed in and appeared behind her. However, when the dark figure was only 3 steps away from her, another dark figure leaped down from the roof beam, holding a long sword that was flashing with a cold light, and coldly blocked in front of him. The Dragon Shadow Guard. The old Marquis was shocked. "Stop," Grand Concubine Jing said. The Dragon Shadow Guard lowered his long sword. "Withdraw," Grand Concubine Jing said. The Dragon Shadow Guard flew up and flew out of the window. The old Marquis knew about the Dragon Shadow Guard. This was a group of death guards that the previous emperor had spent a lot of money to buy from the Yan Kingdom. They had been secretly trained for many years to become the previous emperor's Dragon Shadow Guard. He hadn't expected to see the Dragon Shadow Guard by Grand Concubine Jing's side. He was suddenly at a loss for words. If His Majesty had given the Dragon Shadow Guard to her, didn't that mean her situation wasn't as bad as he imagined? "Why are you here?" Grand Concubine Jing stared at her. The old Marquis met her gaze and found his voice after a long while. I heard you encountered an assassin in the palace and almost got ambushed by something Marquis Xianping gave you. Marquis Xianping was investigating this case in a rather high-profile manner, so all the civil and military officials had heard about it. The old Marquis naturally didn't believe that Marquis Xianping and the old Chancellor would frame Grand Concubine Jing. However, this was the terrifying part of this matter. The culprit was hiding in the dark, so it was impossible to guard against them. Grand Concubine Jing lowered her eyes and sighed. I'm fine. She put the wooden fish back on the table. The old Marquis frowned when he saw the injury on the back of her hand. You're injured. Grand Concubine Jing lowered her hand and covered it with her sleeve. It's just a small injury. It's nothing. Was it done by that person from Renshou Palace? After some thought, the old Marquis felt that Empress Dowager Zhuang was the only one who didn't want Grand Concubine Jing to come back. All of this might have been planned by the Empress Dowager in secret. Grand Concubine Jing lowered her eyes and smiled bitterly. Don't talk nonsense without evidence. We can't beat that person. Her pitiful and aggrieved appearance aroused the old Marquis's blood. Based on the old Marquis's personality, he might as well go all the way to Renshou Palace and assassinate Empress Dowager Zhuang to avenge her. However, the old Marquis was here to take Grand Concubine Jing away. He was a man with a plan, so he had to act according to plan. Empress Dowager Zhuang could be killed next time. He took a deep breath and said, I saw the Dragon Shadow Guard just now and was hesitant about doing this. But since she's so arrogant, it's not appropriate for you to stay here any longer. I'll take you away now. Grand Concubine Jing was startled. What? The old Marquis said. Don't worry, I'll avenge you, but I won't let you down again. I'll take you away now. With that, he grabbed Grand Concubine Jing's wrist and walked out. The two had just reached the door when they bumped into the Emperor, who had come to visit Grand Concubine Jing. Digression, third watch. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111424515. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 352. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. The Marquis moved so quickly that Grand Concubine Jing didn't even have time to react before she was brought to the door. Of course, the main reason was that she hadn't expected the Marquis to do this all of a sudden. Even she herself was outside of the situation. The only person who was even more outside of the situation was the Emperor. The Emperor looked at the Marquis in his night-traveling clothes, then at the hand that was holding Grand Concubine Jing's wrist. His brain exploded on the spot. All he heard was a buzzing sound, and then his mind went blank. The scene in front of him was so stimulating that he lost his voice. The Marquis paused in his steps. He clearly hadn't expected to run into the Emperor either. He had clearly seen that the lights were still on when he passed by the Imperial study, so he thought that the Emperor would take a long time to read through the memorials. Grand Concubine Jing was the first to react, and she quickly pulled her hand back. The Marquis, on the other hand, subconsciously grabbed her hand back. Only then did he realize that something was wrong, but the disaster was already done. The Emperor flew into a rage and roared, "Gu Chao!" The Marquis trembled and let go of Grand Concubine Jing's hand. The one who was startled by the Emperor's shout was Granny Kai, who had gone to the bedchamber. Granny Kai saw Grand Concubine Jing and the Marquis at the door, and then saw the furious Emperor outside. What else could she not understand? She cursed inwardly. She had only been gone for a short while, so how did she get into such a big mess? If she had known this would happen, she would have held it in just now. The emperor clenched his fists tightly and used all his strength to suppress the urge to behead the marquis. He squeezed out one word after another through gritted teeth. Gu Chao, what is going on here? You'd better make yourself clear. If the old chancellor were here, he would have countless flowery words to smooth things over. Whether the emperor would believe him or not was another matter. In any case, the marquis would refuse to admit it and insist that the relationship between this official and the grand concubine was pure. Unfortunately, the old marquis's temperament was not like this. On the battlefield he used troops like a god. He was extraordinarily cunning, and there was nothing too deceitful in war. Once he was on the battlefield, his brain seemed to be stuck there. In private, he was a straightforward person and didn't have the slyness and shamelessness of the old chancellor at all. If the emperor did not catch him, he could not explain to the emperor. But since the emperor had seen him, there was no point in quibbling. He knelt down with a thud, and the floor almost cracked. Your Majesty. He raised his head and said sorrowfully, I am guilty. Granny Kai took the opportunity to point at his nose and said, Of course you're guilty. As a subject of His Majesty trusts you so much, but you sneaked into the palace in the middle of the night to kidnap Imperial concubine Dowager. Admit it, admit it. Senior Marquis, hurry up and take the blame for yourself. You mustn't implicate Her Highness. An inconspicuous eunuch quietly retreated from behind a large tree not too far away. He sprinted all the way to Renshou Palace and reported the movements in Pure Flower's palace to Eunuch Qin. Io, what a bastard if he didn't watch the fun. Eunuch Qin happily went to report to Empress Dowager Zhuang. What's there to see? Empress Dowager Zhuang had no interest in Grand Concubine Jing's romantic affairs. But Eunuch Qin wanted to see it. It was so heart-wrenching. Eunuch Qin advised earnestly, You'll lose a piece of meat if you see it. You've been acting with His Majesty for so long, so it's time to see the results. The sooner you step on her, the sooner you don't have to act anymore, right? Empress Dowager Zhuang thought it was feasible, and put down the memorial in her hand to go to Pure Flower's palace. The atmosphere in Pure Flower's palace was so heavy that everyone couldn't breathe. The palace servants all fell to their knees and trembled. The Empress Dowager has arrived. Following Eunuch Qin's announcement, everyone prostrated themselves even lower. Grand Concubine Jing and Granny Kai both glanced over at the same time. Empress Dowager Zhuang was dressed in a gorgeous and expensive phoenix robe. The robe and wide sleeves were embroidered with phoenixes about to take flight. As she slowly walked over in the dark night, she inexplicably gave off the pressure of a judge. The old marquis and the emperor silently confronted each other, and didn't look at Empress Dowager Zhuang. Even so, the two could still feel her aura. Eunuch Wei bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang walked up the steps and swept her gaze over everyone. She asked calmly, Oh, it's so late, but Pure Flower's palace is still so lively. Even old Marquis Gu has come. Why is the old Marquis kneeling? He's even kneeling in Nanjing En's meditation room. At the mention of this, the emperor remembered that Gu Chao was kneeling in the wrong place. He gritted his teeth and said, Get out here and kneel. The old marquis knelt in the courtyard. Empress Dowager Zhuang slowly asked, What happened? Does His Majesty want to punish him to kneel? Granny Kai hurriedly said, Empress Dowager, the old marquis snuck into the palace in the middle of the night and kidnapped esteemed concubine Dowager. If His Majesty hadn't arrived in time, esteemed concubine Dowager might have met with a mishap. Empress Dowager Zhuang raised an eyebrow. Oh, kidnapped the old concubine. Ijia remembers that Pure Flower's palace had the dragon shadow guards left behind by the previous emperor. Are they all dead? Are they waiting for His Majesty to rescue the old concubine? The emperor's expression changed when he heard this. He'd been so angry that he'd forgotten that he'd sent the dragon shadow guards to Grand Concubine Jing's side. That's right, with the dragon shadow guards there. How did Gu Chao get close to Grand Concubine Jing? It couldn't be that the dragon shadow guards were lured away again. Even if they were lured away for a while, he'd been here for so long that the dragon shadow guards should have returned by now. The dragon shadow guards hadn't appeared from beginning to end, so there was only one possibility. Grand Concubine Jing had them withdraw. Therefore, it wasn't Gu Chao who'd kidnapped Grand Concubine Jing. It was the two of them, the two of them. The emperor forced himself not to think about those two words, but Eunuch Qin said them out loud. Ah, it's the middle of the night. Is Nun Jing'an thinking of escaping the palace with the old marquis? Eunuch Wei said, that's right, that's right. You two aren't really thinking of escaping the palace, are you? Granny Kai was about to go crazy. She glared at Eunuch Wei. Whose side are you on? Eunuch Wei covered his mouth. His mouth was loose. Eunuch Qin. Be careful with your words. Granny Kai shouted. But what was the use of being loud? It was just a bluff. The truth was right in front of them. No amount of sophistry could cover up the fact that the dragon shadow guards hadn't made a move. Grand Concubine Jing looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang through the dark night. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't even have a child, but she was still able to stand tall in the harem for so many years. How could it be just luck? It wasn't that she didn't know how to use those tricks, but there were some things that she disdained to fight for. And this seemed to give some people the wrong impression that she was just SOSO. She couldn't do anything other than take the blame and be bitterly disappointed. Zhuang Jins was proud. The proud Zhuang Jins wouldn't come to watch Grand Concubine Jing's drama, nor would she hit her when she was down. She was disdainful. Zhuang Jins had changed. She was still proud, but there was something more than that. Grand Concubine Jing clenched the string of Buddhist beads in her hand. Empress Dowager Zhuang smiled coldly. I've asked you several times over the years if you wanted to come back, but you said no. You were doing well in the nunnery. I thought you were just being polite. As she spoke, she looked at the old duke meaningfully. So it's true. Empress Dowager Zhuang stopped there and left with Eunuch Qin. Granny Kai was anxious. Empress Dowager, you can't say that. When did you ask Grand Concubine if she wanted to come back to the palace? Did Empress Dowager Zhuang ask? Of course not. But were they the only ones allowed to accuse her? In this situation, at the right time, at the right place, I'm going to kill you. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who bowed down for 5 candied fruits, was so domineering. Men always cared about this kind of thing. And because they cared, they were suspicious. Empress Dowager Zhuang's words were the straw that broke the camel's back. Granny Kai knelt down and begged. Your Majesty, don't listen to Empress Dowager's nonsense. Grand Concubine and old Duke Gu are innocent. Grand Concubine never said that to Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager never sent anyone to the nunnery to ask Grand Concubine to come back. Grand Concubine is your mother. You have to believe her. Your Majesty, you have to believe Grand Concubine. The emperor's heart ached. It hurt more than when he found out that the old chancellor was his father. Maybe it was because he subconsciously knew that the old chancellor and Empress Dowager Zhuang couldn't be real. A woman like Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't need any man. She was too strong and powerful. However, his concubine Jing was weak and helpless, and Gu Chao had saved her life. When he was hesitating whether to agree to Gu Chao's request for marriage, it was she who spoke for Gu Chao. Could it be that she really had Gu Chao in her heart? He looked at concubine Jing sadly and said with red eyes, If I didn't happen to meet you, would you have left with him? At this moment he finally understood why he was so upset. Even if Empress Dowager Zhuang really had a man, she wouldn't give up the country and power. She was still the high and mighty Empress Dowager Zhuang and his mother. No matter how much he disliked her, despised her, and hated her, he could never get rid of her. But concubine Jing just wanted to abandon him. She didn't want him, she didn't want her son anymore. The emperor's throat swelled with pain. He turned around and held back the tears in his eyes. You can go. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111405566. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg. Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 353. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. If he didn't leave now, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop himself from chopping off Gu Chao's head, even though he deserved to die. Your Highness, Grand Imperial Concubine. Granny Kai cried out miserably. The Emperor turned around abruptly and saw the old concubine's pale face. She looked like a withered autumn leaf that was about to fall. She took one last look at the Emperor with tears in her eyes before she closed her eyes and fainted. The Emperor stepped forward to catch her. Holding her bony body, he yelled anxiously, "Mother! Mother! Summon the imperial physician." By the time the old concubine woke up, it was already past midnight. The Emperor was reviewing memorials in his study with the old Marquis kneeling in front of him. The Emperor hadn't thought of how to deal with him yet, but it was too embarrassing to let him kneel in the courtyard. A young eunuch came to the door of the study. Eunuch Wei walked over and listened to him say a few words. He nodded and returned to the study whispering, "Your Majesty, the old concubine is awake." The Emperor didn't have the urge to rush over to see her like he used to. Perhaps he was hurt by her abandonment of him. He never thought that he was less important to her than a wild man outside. The Emperor glared coldly at the old Marquis. It took him a lot of effort not to issue an imperial edict that would exterminate his entire family. Eunuch Wei sighed and said, "Your Majesty, do you want to go take a look?" The imperial physician said that the old concubine's condition isn't good. She even spat out a mouthful of blood just now. The Emperor's heart skipped a beat when he heard about the old concubine spitting out blood. After all, they had been mother and son for so many years. It wasn't something that could be broken so easily. He got up and went to the old concubine's bedchamber. The old concubine had just taken some medicine, and her face was paler than before. The Emperor suddenly remembered that she had been either sick or injured since returning to the palace. It seemed that she hadn't had a single day of peace. She probably wanted to escape because she was too tired, too bitter, and too scared. "You may leave," the old concubine said to Granny Kai and the others. "Yes." Granny Kai left with the servants. The Emperor stood not far from the bed, and did not immediately walk over. Grand Concubine Jing propped herself up with her elbows and coughed softly. She wasn't pretending to be weak at this moment. She hadn't recovered from the injuries she suffered when she was put in a gunny sack, and 2 of her meridians were broken, causing her to cough up blood. She asked, "Your Majesty, is there anything you want to ask me?" The Emperor clenched his fists. Grand Concubine Jing smiled bitterly. "Forget it, I'll say it myself. Did your Majesty think that I was going to abandon you?" Cough cough. Her chest hurt terribly, and she coughed uncontrollably for a while. "If I tell your Majesty that I have no such intention, and that I have never thought of leaving your Majesty, would your Majesty believe me?" The Emperor said nothing. "Yes, I didn't let the Dragon Shadow Guard stop the old Marquis, because he saved my life after all. I didn't know what he was going to do, so I couldn't rashly let the Dragon Shadow Guards kill him. Later on, he was also anxious. He thought that I had suffered a lot in the palace, and wanted to take me away. I didn't react in time. I was about to refuse when His Majesty came." The Emperor clenched his fists tightly, and his gaze was cold. Then, "Mother, did you really never have any feelings for him?" "No," Grand Concubine Jing said. "Mother, are you so sure?" the Emperor asked. Grand Concubine Jing met his gaze without dodging and said firmly, "Yes, I'm very sure of my feelings. I've only ever had the late Emperor in my heart, and no other man has ever existed. I've always treated him as my savior, and I have no romantic feelings for him." He misunderstood. After she finished speaking, she suddenly sensed something and turned to look at the door. She saw the old Marquis standing there with a shocked and hurt expression. She was stunned. "Don't be so impulsive. You'll implicate your family. I was born as a member of the imperial family, and I'll die as a member of the imperial family. I can't escape from it for the rest of my life. I don't want you to be implicated because of me. Your family is innocent. Think of Chongqing, Chengfeng, Chenglin, and that child who suffered from heart disease since childhood. Can you bear to let them die with you for your own selfish reasons? I'm not afraid of death, but I don't want to harm them. From now on, pretend you've never seen me. Just say in front of His Majesty that it was a moment of impulse and not romantic feelings. What I owe you, I'll return it to you in my next life. Originally, she could have said so much to calm him down without offending a single one of them. But now it was all too late. She looked at the emperor. The emperor turned and looked expressionlessly at the old marquis. Beloved official Gu has heard esteemed imperial concubine's thoughts? He hadn't just heard it. Every single word was like a stab to his heart. The old marquis was so angry that his entire body trembled and his knuckles cracked. Grand concubine Jing's expression changed, and she opened her mouth. However, the old marquis didn't give her a chance to explain. He took out the red knot that he'd kept for many years, and casually tossed it into the fire before turning to leave. Grand concubine Jing closed her eyes. Her knuckles under her wide sleeves were white from clenching them so hard. News of what happened in Pure Flower's palace didn't spread. Everyone in Pure Flower's palace had been ordered to keep their mouths shut. Even Empress Xiao didn't hear anything when she came over. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't leak anything either. The emperor was very grateful for this. He called out to Empress Dowager Zhuang on his way to court and awkwardly thanked her. What are you thanking me for? Empress Dowager Zhuang asked indifferently. No one was watching, so what was the point of pretending? It's nothing. The emperor left without looking back. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes. How shameless. The nunnery in the palace had been renovated and Grand Concubine Jing had moved there. It was said that the emperor had been tied up with official business that day and hadn't personally brought Grand Concubine Jing to the nunnery. She couldn't have fallen out of favor, right? A palace maid whispered as she swept the floor in the imperial garden. The eunuch beside her said, How could that be? Esteemed imperial concubine is His Majesty's mother. It was His Majesty who personally brought her back from the nunnery. But haven't you heard that His Majesty and the Empress Dowager have reconciled? And His Majesty is in such a hurry to have esteemed imperial concubine move out of Pure Flower's palace. The palace maid was halfway through her sentence when she felt someone pinch her arm. I didn't say anything wrong. She turned around and saw Grand Concubine Jing's sedan stop behind her. She dropped to her knees in fright. Grand Imperial Concubine. Grand Concubine Jing didn't say anything, but Granny Kai glared at her with resentment. Let's go, Grand Concubine Jing said. Yes, Granny Kai replied. Once they were far away, Grand Concubine Jing said to Granny Kai, You saw it. Everyone in the palace is dependent on His Majesty, except for the one in Renshou Palace. Granny Kai looked at her with heartache. Your Highness. Grand Concubine Jing casually plucked a leaf and rubbed it as she murmured. Without His Majesty's love, one would choke to death just from drinking water in the palace. She doesn't need it, she doesn't need it. Gu Jiao hadn't been to the palace for a few days. Xiao Lulang didn't seem to do much when he was at home. But when he left, everyone realized that he was the one who worked the hardest at home. Not to mention other things, just tutoring 3 little boys was enough to torture them to death. Little Jing Kong always had 100,000 whys, Gu Yan always had 100,000 reasons why he didn't want to learn, and Gu Xiaoshan always had 100,000 reasons why he didn't understand. The old chancellor was old after all. He could handle it for a day or two, but he was on the verge of schizophrenia after working so hard every day. Moreover, he wasn't free every day. Once he was held up by the directorate's official business, the task of tutoring fell on Gu Jiao. Therefore, Gu Jiao was very busy recently. Little Jing Kong had an abacus homework today. Gu Jiao asked him to take out the golden abacus. Where's your abacus? Didn't you return it to you? Little Jing Kong rolled his eyes. I returned it, but I lent it to Brother Kanji again. We're all good friends. We should treat each other equally. Yes, treat each other equally. He was really a clever little boy. Gu Jiao looked at him suspiciously. Really? Little Jing Kong nodded repeatedly. Really? I didn't sell it. Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes. After finishing her homework, dinner wasn't ready yet. Gu Jiao went to the backyard to collect the dried herbs. Little Jing Kong poked his head out from the central room. Jiao, I'm going to play with Zhao Xiaobao. After saying that, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. Zhao Xiaobao again. The little guy always went to find Zhao Xiaobao recently. When did he become so fond of playing with kids younger than him? Gu Jiao felt strange. After hesitating for a while, she put down the herbs and went out of the yard. She went next door. Uncle Zhao was repairing a stool in the yard. When he saw her, he smiled and greeted her. Jiao, come in and have a seat. Uncle Zhao. Gu Jiao greeted him politely and asked, Is Jing Kong here? No. Uncle Zhao shook his head. As expected. Gu Jiao asked again, Where's Xiaobao? Is he here? Uncle Zhao said, Xiaobao is not here. He went to find Brother Hu. Brother Hu was Granny Zhou's grandson. He lived at the other end of the alley. Did little Jing Kong go there to find Zhao Xiaobao? Uncle Zhao asked, Did Jing Kong go out? Gu Jiao said, Yes, he said he went to find Xiaobao. Uncle Zhao frowned and pointed in the direction of Chong, an avenue, saying, I've seen this child go that way several times recently. I thought you knew. Then I'll go look for him. Gu Jiao left the Zhao family's house and walked in the direction of Chong, an avenue. The little guy had become bolder recently. He even dared to lie and sneak out of the alley. Gu Jiao decided that when she caught the little guy later, she would punish him severely no matter how cute he acted. Gu Jiao came to Chong an avenue. Chong, an avenue used to be more prosperous than Xuanwu Avenue. However, since the girls' school opened on Xuanwu Avenue, it had attracted a lot of customers. Now the two streets were almost on par. Gu Jiao walked a few steps and vaguely sensed a strange breath. The breath was very faint. It was almost impossible to detect if one was not close enough. That person was watching Jadewater Alley. Gu Jiao rarely walked in this direction. The last time she came, there was no such breath. Gu Jiao's fingertip moved, and a piece of black gunpowder shot out. The person thought it was a hidden weapon and blocked it with his sword. The gunpowder exploded on the blade. What is this? The man rolled down from the roof with a clatter. Gu Jiao took a few steps forward and stepped on the person's chest. The person was not to be trifled with. Even if he was hit by the gunpowder, he still had some strength to fight back. He jumped up like a carp and avoided Gu Jiao's foot. Then he waved his sword and stabbed at Gu Jiao. The only weapon Gu Jiao used in her previous life was a dagger. It was not easy to hurt her with this weapon. Gu Jiao grabbed his wrist with one hand and twisted it to knock the dagger out of his hand. Then, she chopped him with her hand and slammed him against the wall. Gu Jiao pinned his hands behind his back and pressed his face against the cold wall. Who are you? Why are you sneaking around here? He said angrily. It's none of your business. Just as he finished speaking, a golden object fell out of his arms and fell to the ground. If it was not little Jing Kong's golden abacus, what else could it be? Gu Jiao's gaze turned cold. So you were the one who stole the golden abacus? The person shouted. What do you mean by that? I didn't steal it. Gu Jiao said coldly. If you didn't steal it, then you stole it? The person gasped. I didn't steal it either. Gu Jiao exerted force and he felt his bones cracking. He hurriedly said. I bought it. I got someone to buy it. You can have it if you like it. It's not worth much anyway. The golden abacus was not worth much? How arrogant. This person obviously knew martial arts. Gu Jiao was worried that he bullied little Jing Kong and extorted it from little Jing Kong. She did not want to show mercy. Just as she almost broke his ribs, he suddenly said, You can ask him if you don't believe me. I bought it from him. Gu Jiao turned her head and looked at little Jing Kong. When their eyes met, little Jing Kong's body trembled. Jiao? He quickly hid the abacus behind his back. Gu Jiao pressed the man with both hands, and did not have the hands to pick up the abacus. She looked at the golden abacus on the ground and said, You found your abacus. Pick it up. Little Jing Kong did not move. He lowered his head. The guard in gray said, Little brother, this is the abacus that my master bought from you. Do you still remember my master? the man who held a white jade fan and wore a white robe and a black veil. Little Jing Kong's expression gave Gu Jiao the answer. Gu Jiao let go and the guard in gray fell to the ground in pain. What kind of woman was she? Why was she so strong? Gu Jiao walked over and squatted down to look at little Jing Kong. She asked, "Why did you sell your abacus?" Little Jing Kong lowered his head and said, "I want money." Gu Jiao looked at him and said seriously, "You can tell me if you want money. All your money is with me. I'm just keeping it for you. You can take it whenever you want." Gu Jiao saw that he did not speak, so she asked again, "What do you want to do with the money?" "I want to buy this." Little Jing Kong took out the cloth bag hidden behind his back. The cloth bag was heavy and bulging. She did not know what was in it. Gu Jiao took the cloth bag and asked, "Why do you want to buy this?" Little Jing Kong whispered, "For Jiao Jiao." "For me?" Gu Jiao opened it strangely, and a bright red light shone out of it. She had never expected that it would contain a brand new wedding dress. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1114027767. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 354. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online will be available here. A strange emotion filled Gu Jiao's chest. She felt that her heart was slightly swollen, as if someone had placed a sun in it. Even the tip of her heart was hot and painful. She had never dealt with such strong and complicated emotions before, so she didn't know what it was. What a beautiful dress. Who did you make it for? It's for Sister Jinyu. Why did you make such a beautiful dress for her? Jiao Jiao doesn't even have it. The conversation between the little guy and Yao flashed across Gu Jiao's mind. It wasn't that she didn't hear it, but she didn't take it to heart. Did the little guy take it to heart? Did he feel bad that someone else had a wedding dress but she didn't? She didn't think about the wedding dress. She was already married and didn't need a wedding dress anymore, although she had never worn one before. In this world, no one would think that she still needed a wedding dress. Except for this little guy who didn't know anything. This little guy who wanted to give her the best things in the world. In order to buy her a beautiful wedding dress, he sold his most beloved Xiaojin. She always asked very little from others. Perhaps it was because she had been in deep despair when she was young. So when she grew up, she avoided all expectations in order to avoid disappointment. This had always been her principle of doing things. She realized that living like this would make her feel peaceful. But Jing Kong, you'll spoil me like this. Gu Jiao stared at him, almost speechless. Little Jing Kong thought that she was angry. He lowered his head, grabbed his little fingers and said nervously, "Jiao Jiao, don't be angry. I'll buy Xiaojin back when I earn money in the future." He just wanted to give Jiao Jiao a surprise, so he didn't ask Jiao Jiao for money. But he didn't expect that Jiao Jiao would catch him selling Xiaojin. So sad. More sad than losing Xiaojin. He did not want Jiao Jiao to dislike him. The gray-clothed guard also didn't expect that the little monk he was tailing would end up in such a situation. Both he and the young master were puzzled as to why the little monk needed so much money at such a young age. Who would have thought that he wanted to buy a wedding dress for this little girl? After keeping an eye on the little monk for so long, the guard in gray finally got some information about him. The little monk was called Jing Kong, and came from a remote temple in Yuzhou province. About 1 year ago, he was adopted by someone and returned to the secular world. This little girl should be the little monk's current family. She couldn't tell that the little monk knew how to dote on people. It was really strange. That person didn't raise such a good disciple, but instead gave her to someone else to raise. Why? Was he not afraid that others would mistreat this little fellow? However, looking at the little fellow's fair and tidy clothes, it was obvious that he had been treated very well. The pain on the gray-robed guard's body finally subsided a little. However, the explosion just now had left a bald patch on his forehead. He stood up with one hand holding the wall, and touched the bald spot on his forehead with the other. He gritted his teeth and asked Gu Jiao, "Hey, what kind of hidden weapon did you use just now?" Gu Jiao looked back at him and asked lightly, "What does it have to do with you?" The guard in gray was speechless. Did this little girl return his words to him? The guard in gray said, "I didn't steal or rob. I was beaten up by you for no reason. Don't you feel sorry for that?" Gu Jiao said, "You were looking for a child to buy something, and you were tailing him sneakily. Don't you think you deserve to be beaten up?" It seemed to make sense. The guard in gray was speechless. Gu Jiao had never been polite to such people. Not to mention a fair deal. From the moment they approached little Jing Kong, their motives were already impure. It was just that she didn't want to fight in front of little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao took back the golden abacus and said, "Why are you still here? Are you waiting to be beaten up?" The guard in gray weighed the pros and cons, and after confirming that he really couldn't beat her, he left resentfully. Little Jing Kong lowered his head and tugged at the corner of his little clothes. "Jiao Jiao, if you don't like it, I can." What he got in response was a warm hug. He was stunned and blinked his big eyes. His eyelashes flickered. "Jiao Jiao? I like it." Gu Jiao hugged the little guy in her arms tightly and breathed in his warm breath and milky fragrance. "I like it very much. Thank you, Jing Kong." Little Jing Kong finally felt relieved. He buried his little head in Gu Jiao's neck. Jiao Jiao liked his present. It was so nice. Gu Jiao patted his little head and put the golden abacus in his hand. "Don't sell it in the future. It's so beautiful that I'll be reluctant to part with it." "Okay." He nodded. Xiao Jin also came back. It was so nice. The two of them went home happily. The gray-clothed guards also returned to their temporary residence. They were originally staying in an inn, but later on, their young master felt that there were too many people in the inn. So he found a guarantor to rent a residence near Jadewater Alley. It was in a small alley at the end of Chang'an Avenue. Firstly, it was quiet. Secondly, it was close enough to monitor the little monk. But it seemed that he had a bad start today. What happened? The man who called himself Master Mingyu in front of little Jing Kong looked at the guard in gray with disheveled hair and a dirty face. He frowned and said, "How did you get yourself like this? And why is your head bald?" The guard in gray quickly covered the bald spot on his forehead and said gloomily, "Master also said that if you didn't ask me to keep an eye on the little monk, I wouldn't have gotten into trouble." The man put down half of the incense and snorted coldly. "Don't be so pretentious. I indulged you too much in the past. As a guard, you're not good enough and you're not as good as others. How dare you put the blame on me?" The guard in gray was embarrassed. The man continued to mix the incense. "What happened? Were you discovered?" "Yes. The little girl beside the little monk is so powerful. I don't know what kind of hidden weapon she used, but it actually..." The guard in gray gestured and said, "It actually exploded. Like a firecracker." The man's handsome brows furrowed. "Exploded? Firecracker?" The guard in gray shook his head. "It's not a firecracker. Firecrackers were bamboo. When it was burned in a fire, it would make a crackling sound like an explosion. That was why it was called a firecracker." "Oh, I don't know what it was. I didn't see it clearly. I thought it was a dart, so I pulled out my knife to block it. In the end," he touched his bald forehead, "I became like this." The man stopped mixing the incense again. He pondered for a moment and said thoughtfully, "Could it be the black fire pearl?" The guard in gray was puzzled. "What black fire pearl, master?" The man said slowly, "It's a hidden weapon from the Yen Kingdom. It's similar to what you described just now. It's said that this hidden weapon is made of sulfur and is more powerful than ordinary darts. If you encounter it, you can't take it head-on. You can only avoid it. Otherwise, you'll be blasted into a bloody mess." "Sulfur?" The guard in gray was suddenly enlightened. Yes, yes. That's the smell of sulfur. Then the man shook his head. It shouldn't be just sulfur. I also used sulfur to make it, but it didn't work. The guard in gray was surprised. So that girl is from the Yin Kingdom? The man smiled faintly. Do you know that only the royal family of the Yin Kingdom has that kind of hidden weapon? What? The guard in gray was shocked. The man said again, but it could be that person who gave it to her. After all, she even took away the letter of credence of the Yin Kingdom. What's the big deal if she took away a few black fire pearls? The guard in gray nodded. That's right. The man smiled. Otherwise, do you think she made it herself? Or she has something to do with the royal family of the Yin Kingdom? The guard in gray didn't think it was possible. Even his master couldn't make it. How could a little girl make it? As for having something to do with the royal family of the Yin Kingdom, forget it. A small country like the Zhao Kingdom couldn't even walk on the official road of the Yin Kingdom. How could she have something to do with the royal family? The guard in gray asked. Then should I continue to keep an eye on the Clearwater Alley, master? The man glanced at him and said angrily, You've been exposed. Don't go there for a few days. The guard in gray said, Oh. But he really wanted to go there. He wanted to see the black fire pearl. It didn't matter if he was blasted. After returning home, little Jing Kong couldn't wait to let Gu Jiao try on the new clothes he bought for her. Gu Jiao thought for a while and asked him if he knew what she bought. Beautiful clothes. Little Jing Kong said. It seemed that he didn't know it was a wedding dress. Gu Jiao explained to him. It's a wedding dress. You can only wear it when you get married. Ha! Little Jing Kong was stunned. He raised his two small hands and scratched his small buzz cut. Jiao Jiao and brother-in-law are married. So I can't wear Jiao Jiao? It seemed that it could be said that way. It's okay. Little Jing Kong suddenly straightened his back and patted his small chest. Jiao Jiao, you can marry me again. Gu Jiao was amused. Children can't get married. He thought for a while. Then wait for me to grow up. When I grow up, I'll marry Jiao Jiao. When Jiao Jiao gets married again, I'll be able to wear the wedding dress. That's right, that's the reason. Aya, he's really a clever little boy. He was so proud of himself that he shook his little head. Little Jing Kong still didn't know that his words had come true. Later, Gu Jiao did get married again, and wore the wedding dress he gave her. Unfortunately, the groom wasn't him. Digression heartbreaking. Little Jing Kong 2333. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/111378017. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 355. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. Today's dinner was made by senior servant Fong. Yuya accidentally added too much firewood, causing the dishes for little Jing Kong to be a bit burnt. Little Jing Kong was not picky about his food, and he finished it without leaving anything behind. He wanted to grow up quickly so that he could marry Jiao Jiao. On the other side, Xiao Lulang, who was in Pingshan village, didn't know that his wife was being targeted by the little fellow. He was helping the villagers move wood on the embankment. There was also an inspector from the Ministry of Revenue moving with him. More than a dozen people lined up in a line. They didn't need to move as the first person passed the wood over. In a shed not far away, Royal Prince An was helping the Minister of Revenue organize the accounts for this trip to the countryside. The Ministry of Revenue of the current dynasty was in charge of the country's territory, farmland, household registration, taxes, salaries and all financial matters including farming. They were going to the countryside this time to provide relief, and also to help the villagers dig canals to draw water and rebuild the fertile fields after the disaster. They didn't have enough manpower, so some things had to be done by the officials themselves. Royal Prince An suddenly appeared in the group on the day of departure. Before that, no one knew that he would go to the countryside with them. Royal Prince An's leg injury was almost healed, so he should be able to walk. He and Grand Tutor Zhuang had sent someone to inform the Minister of Revenue, so he was asked to stay by the Minister of Revenue's side to do some idle things. While he was recording the accounts, he inadvertently glanced at Xiao Lulang, who was beside the embankment. Because of the hot weather, the villagers had all taken off their shirts. Even the inspector from the Ministry of Revenue was shirtless. Xiao Liulang's white undergarment was particularly eye-catching. His clothes were soaked in sweat and clung tightly to his body. Usually, it wasn't very obvious because of the heavy official's robe. Today, one could see that his body was more muscular than expected. His sleeves were rolled up high, revealing his well-defined forearms. Royal Prince An subconsciously pinched his forearms. He didn't seem to be as muscular as him. Moreover, Royal Prince An vaguely remembered that a year ago in the countryside, Xiao Lulang was not as tall as him. Why did he look so much taller now? Editor Zhuang, are you done with this? The Minister of Revenue reminded him. Just a little bit more. Royal Prince An came back to his senses and handed the last page to the Minister of Revenue. All right, please take a look. Xiao Lulang and the villagers were busy until the sun set in the west. The villagers baked pancakes, steamed cornbread, and mixed pickled vegetables for everyone to eat. Originally, he wanted to kill the chicken, but was rejected by the Minister of Revenue. The imperial court does not extort the wealth of the people, does not take a single cent from the people, does not covet a single grain of rice from the people. The rice and flour were also paid for by the villagers. Prince An was not used to it. Even during the most difficult days in the state of Chun, he had never eaten this kind of food. He saw that Xiao Lulang was enjoying it. Xiao Lulang and the villagers sat on the ridge of the field, not burdened by the image of an imperial Hanlin official. An uncle from the village walked over and sat down next to Xiao Lulang. He asked with a smile, "Lord Xiao, are you used to it?" "Pretty good," Xiao Lulang said. Xiao Lulang treated people coldly, not like Royal Prince An, who was always as gentle as jade, and had the appearance of a modest young master. However, he worked the hardest and did not put on airs. The villagers were more willing to get close to him. Uncle took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, and took out a boiled egg for him. "It's hot, eat it quickly. I see that you've been working the whole day. You're working even harder than us. Your aunt cooked it for you." Xiao Lulang refused. "No need, I'm full. Uncle Zhang can eat it himself." Eldest uncle forced the egg into his hand. "Hey, just eat it. Last time when Gooden had a stomachache, if you didn't give him medicine, he wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Also last time, when Li Zheng was bitten by a poisonous insect, it was also you who treated him. This has nothing to do with the court, it's all your medicine." Gooden was the youngest son of uncle and aunt. Uncle knew that medicine was very expensive no matter how ignorant he was. In order to treat the villagers, Lord Xiao had emptied his own medicine bag. He didn't know how much money that was, but it definitely wasn't something that an egg could pay for. Uncle sighed. "If you don't eat it, your aunt will nag me again when we get back. It's not like you don't know how naggy that woman is." In the end, Xiao Lulang accepted the egg. Uncle was very happy and told him many things about the village with relish. Only when Gooden came to call him did he reluctantly leave. He said that he would come find Xiao Lulang the next day. Xiao Lulang also returned to the temporary hut. The hut was built temporarily. There was only a table, a cabinet, and 2 wooden beds piled up with wooden stools. One was his and the other was Royal Prince An's. Royal Prince An was more particular about the finer things than him. He even put in a mosquito net. He didn't use a mosquito net. He had the mosquito coils made by Gu Jiao, so he didn't need a mosquito net. It wasn't too late now. He planned to go to the nearby forest to pick some medicine for Gu Jiao. He didn't know the name of the medicine, but he saw Gu Jiao drying it in the courtyard a few times. He took his basket and walking stick. When he reached the door, he heard a horse carriage coming towards them. After it stopped, a middle-aged man wearing an official's robe came down. Who else could it be but Marquis Gu? After Marquis Gu fixed the road, he immediately came to inform them. He first went to greet the Minister of Revenue. Royal Prince was also there. Considering the marriage between the two families, Royal Prince was now his son-in-law. Marquis Gu was very cordial and polite to Royal Prince. When Xiao Lulang walked past him with a basket, he didn't even look at Xiao Lulang. Royal Prince reminded him, Marquis Gu, that was Xiao Xiuzhua. This Marquis knows. Marquis Gu said carelessly. They had met in the countryside. He would recognize him even if he turned into ashes. He didn't know any etiquette at all. He was clearly a poor boy from the countryside, but he didn't care about him, his father-in-law. Royal Prince was born noble, but he wasn't as arrogant as him. Royal Prince felt Marquis Gu's contempt towards Xiao Lulang. He said with slight confusion, he's Marquis Gu's son-in-law. Marquis Gu thought, I didn't acknowledge that girl. What son-in-law or not? Even if he acknowledged that girl, he wouldn't accept a poor boy from the countryside as his son-in-law. So what if he was the top scholar? So what if he entered Hanlin Academy? He's still a country bumpkin. He Guchong only had one son-in-law, Royal Prince. I heard that you're not used to the food in the countryside, so I brought some good food for you. Marquis Gu didn't want to talk too much about Xiao Lulang. He took the roast duck, crispy chicken and jerky that he bought on the way from the carriage, and gave them all to Royal Prince. He didn't leave anything for Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang didn't know that Marquis Gu was favoring Royal Prince. He entered the forest. He had come to pick herbs a few times, so he was quite familiar with the path in the forest. After walking for a few minutes, he found the herbs he needed. He squatted down and started picking the herbs. He had heard Gu Jiao tell Yuya, or before that this kind of herb was hard to buy in the capital. She had to carefully dry it. When Xiao Lulang went to deliver the herbs to Gooden, he accidentally saw a few stalks of this kind of green grass lying on the ground in their house. After asking, he found out that there were many stalks of this kind of grass near the river in the forest on the east side of the village. Xiao Lulang quickly picked a basket full of herbs. It was about time for him to go back. Just as he turned around and walked down the mountain, he suddenly heard a rustling sound behind him. He felt a chill down his spine and quickly turned around. It turned out to be a hungry wolf with two glowing green eyes. This was the edge of the forest. The villagers had never seen a wolf before, but he met one today. His luck really didn't disappoint. This was a lone wolf that got separated from the pack. It was starving and looked at the prey in front of it. It didn't hesitate for long before opening its bloody mouth and pouncing towards Xiao Lulang. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Lulang took out a small round bead and threw it towards its head. With a loud bang, the hungry wolf was blown up and blood splattered everywhere. It howled and fell down. It turned its head to look at Xiao Lulang before running away with its tail between its legs. Xiao Lulang's whole body was soaked in cold sweat. He looked at the lone wolf that ran away and breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that my luck isn't that bad. Gu Jiao gave Xiao Lulang a total of 3 black gunpowder. She was afraid that he would blow himself up if she put too much. After all, he was always so unlucky, right? Xiao Lulang came to the river and squatted down to wash his face. But as he washed, he instinctively sensed a trace of danger approaching. Could it be that the lone wolf was back? No. This time, the aura was much more terrifying than the lone wolf. He frowned warily, turned around and put his hand into the bag of gunpowder. Not far away, 2 masked men in black stood on the riverbank with swords in their hands and looked at him covetously. Their eyes were full of murderous intent. It just so happened that he still had 2 black gunpowder left. He said that his luck was still not bad. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the bag loosened and the black gunpowder fell into the water. Xiao Lulang. Digression. A person can't be arrogant. Come next sentence. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/1113766358. HTML Genius memorized this site's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 356. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. Is the gunpowder that fell into the water still useful? This was not the main point. The main point was that he didn't have a chance to get it. The two black-clothed men raised their swords and slashed at him. The powerful killing intent was wrapped in sharp sword energy. It almost created wind blades in the air, and even the air was cut open. Even a normal expert could not escape from this killing move, not to mention a little cripple like Xiao Lulang. He could only watch as the other party's swords slashed at him. He closed his eyes. The two swords slashed at his head at the same time. However, in the end they did not fall. When they were only an inch away from him, the two people stopped at the same time. Xiao Lulang opened his eyes. The two people fell straight to the ground. They did not even have time to close their eyes. Behind the two people, Chong Jing nimbly put away his sword. Then Chong Jing went to find the black bead in the water. He picked up the black bead as if it was very fun. He squeezed it hard. Bang! He was blown up. Marquis Xianping walked over from the back of the hill. He was wearing a heavy purple brocade robe. He strolled leisurely with a lazy expression. He was like this. It was clearly a small country road, but it made him walk like he was on the path to immortality. When Xiao Lulang saw him, his expression did not change. He was as cold as before. Fortunately, Marquis Xianping was used to it. He came in front of Xiao Lulang and looked him up and down, as if to see if he was injured. After confirming that his child was unharmed, he looked at Chong Jing, who was sitting on the ground in a daze. He used the tip of his foot to lightly kick Chong Jing's little butt. Who told you to kill everyone? How many times have I said, leave them alive, leave them alive? Chong Jing ignored him. He stood up with a dark face and used his qinggong to leave. Yes, he was angry. Marquis Xianping looked in the direction Chong Jing left and said to Xiao Lulang, Chong Jing is still young. Don't be angry with him. Xiao Lulang looked at Marquis Xianping expressionlessly. Who was angry with him? Marquis Xianping was still unaware of Xiao Liulang's disdain. Magnanimously and confidently, he flicked his wide sleeves. Who did you offend? Why would someone come to kill you? Xiao Lulang ignored him. He picked up his walking stick from the riverside and brushed past Xiao Lulang, walking straight ahead. Although it was called a crutch, it was actually a beautiful cane made by Gu Jiao herself. After the piercing pain in his foot disappeared, he was no longer as difficult as before. Marquis Xianping was continuously ignored, but he was not angry. He was magnanimous and did not bicker with the child. He followed her shamelessly. He was handsome, and he looked especially good when he was thick-skinned. The green mountains, the clear waters, and the sunset glow were all inferior to his good looks. Unfortunately, it was useless no matter how handsome he was. A certain someone didn't even look at him. Marquis Xianping sighed. Xiao Lulang walked for a long time. A certain someone sighed behind him for a long time. Xiao Lulang pinched his fingers and said with a frown, Why are you following me? Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows. Am I following you? Did you open this road? Did you plant this tree? Xiao Lulang said coldly, I'm going back to the village. Marquis Xianping said, What a coincidence, me too. Xiao Lulang turned and walked down another road. Marquis Xianping quickly followed. Xiao Lulang stopped in his tracks and pointed at the path from before. The village is over there. Marquis Xianping, who was tricked. As long as he didn't feel awkward, others would feel awkward. Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows. I want to go this way. All roads lead to the village. Xiao Lulang took a deep breath and decided to ignore him and treat him as air. He turned back to the original path. After walking a few steps, the sky turned dark and the forest was quiet. From time to time there would be the sounds of insects and strange birds. When the sounds entered one's ears, it would make one's hair stand on end. The trees in this forest were tall and shady. Even the moonlight couldn't shine down. Marquis Xianping was a martial artist and had good eyesight. Even with the thin light, he could see his feet clearly. Xiao Lulang might not be able to. He was originally a cripple and couldn't see clearly. He staggered a few steps. Marquis Xianping strode over and stood in front of him. He squatted down slightly and said, "Come up." Xiao Lulang looked at the broad back in front of him and didn't move. "I can walk by myself." Marquis Xianping straightened his body and turned to look at him. "Are you sure? The night is so dark. Can you walk?" Xiao Lulang raised his walking stick. "I have a walking stick." "Pa." The walking stick broke. Xiao Lulang stared coldly at Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping sighed helplessly and spread out his hands innocently. "It's not me. It broke by itself." Xiao Lulang clenched his fists and said angrily, "We're not far from the village. I'm very familiar with this path. At most, I'll walk slower. It's not like it's raining. What's there to be afraid of?" Even though he said that, he didn't even walk 2 steps when the heavy rain poured down. Xiao Lulang looked at Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping stared with his eyes wide open. "It's not me this time." Xiao Lulang gritted his teeth. "So you admit that it was you just now? It really wasn't me." Marquis Xianping said with an aggrieved face. In terms of shamelessness, Marquis Xianping was on par with the old chancellor. He might even be more shameless than the old chancellor. After all, the old chancellor was only playing the thick black theory in the officialdom. He was still quite normal in his daily life. On the other hand, Marquis Xianping was shameless to the extreme. Marquis Xianping said gloatingly, come on. I'll carry you. You definitely won't be able to walk out." Xiao Lulang was angered to death by him. His eyes were like torches as he said, "Who says I won't be able to walk out? Even if I only have 1 leg left today, I will still jump out." After saying that, he turned around and left. "Ai!" Marquis Xianping stretched out his hand to grab him. However, in order to avoid his hand, Xiao Lulang rushed forward without caring about anything. In the end, he missed a step and fell into the big pit covered by the grass. He fell face first into the pit and fell flat on his face. His other leg was also sprained. Marquis Xianping covered his eyes and couldn't look anymore. "Why are you walking so fast? I can't even pull you back." Marquis Xianping pulled this unlucky child out of the pit and laid him flat on the ground. Xiao Lulang made a dying struggle. "I don't want you to carry me." "Oh." Marquis Xianping bent down and wrapped his hands around a certain person's back and knees. Picking him up, he said in a particularly obnoxious manner, "How old are you that you still want to be carried?" Xiao Lulang. What kind of father was this? Come and strike him with a bolt of lightning. On the west side of the village, the temporary huts that the officials had set up were bustling with noise and excitement. It was not reduced in the slightest by the heavy rain. The road had been repaired, and they could return to the capital the next day. Everyone was very excited. In addition, Marquis Ding and had brought quite a bit of good food. The officials who had been eating cornbread and salted vegetables in the village for over 10 days finally had a chance to eat meat. Everyone ate until their faces were red. It seemed that no one noticed that Xiao Lulang was missing. It was the patrol officer who had worked with Xiao Lulang during the day that sensed that something was wrong. He held a piece of duck meat in his hand and asked, how come I don't see Lord Xiao?" Once these words were said, everyone looked around. That's right, where was Lord Xiao? It was no wonder that no one remembered him. It was because Xiao Lulang had not mingled with the court officials after he went to the countryside. He was always on the front lines of disaster relief and farming, mingling with the villagers. It was normal for him not to be by their side, so no one deliberately thought of him. "It's raining. Perhaps he's hiding from the rain at one of the villagers' houses," another patrol officer said. A registrar from the Ministry of Work said, "He's this ambitious at such a young age. He mingled with the villagers as soon as he arrived. His political achievements this time should be quite good." Whether he had ambition or not, He just did not say it out loud. People were strange like this. If they did not work, then those who did work would be blamed. No one said that Royal Princeton, who always followed the Minister of Revenue, was ambitious. Instead, it was Xiao Lulang who mingled with the villagers that was mistakenly said to be trying to gain popularity among the people. Royal Princeton looked at Marquis Gu and saw that he did not care about Xiao Lulang. He called for Wu Yang. "Go find Lord Xiao." "Yes." Wu Yang took the order and went out. As soon as he opened the door of the hut, he saw a strong and muscular figure in the heavy rain, walking like the wind towards them with a person on his back. His head was covered by his own outer robe, covering the person on his back. He only wore an inner robe and his clothes were already soaked by the heavy rain. He stepped into the puddles and the rain made it hard for him to open his eyes. "What's wrong?" Royal Princeton saw that Wu Yang was frozen at the door and asked him, "What happened?" Wu Yang did not dare to recognize it. Everyone saw that something was wrong and quickly squeezed to the door to look in the direction he was pointing. Everyone was stunned. Someone recognized him. "That isn't that Marquis Xianping?" No one had ever seen Marquis Xianping in such a sorry state. He was the most handsome man in Zhao country. He was very particular and also very vain. Other than on the battlefield, he had never let anyone see him in such a disheveled state. But at this time, he was like a falcon in a storm. In order to protect the young on his back, he plucked out his beautiful feathers and built a nest to shelter him from the wind and rain. Digression. Third watch, it slipped out again. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/111370516. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 357. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. Regardless of rank or status, Marquis Xianping was above everyone else. After he was recognized, no one dared to hide in the hut to hide from the rain. They all rushed out with umbrellas. Everyone fought to hold umbrellas for Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping looked at everyone impatiently. The rain was already so heavy that it was hard to see the road, but this group of people still blocked it. "Out of the way!" Marquis Xianping shouted. Everyone was scared by the murderous aura that he inadvertently emitted. They all retreated to the sides. There were huts one after another. Marquis Xianping didn't know which one was Xiao Liulang's residence. But in the end it wasn't the one that this group of people had rushed out of. He walked to the side. "It's the other way around." Xiao Lulang, who was lying on his back, said weakly. Marquis Xianping paused in his steps and ran to the other side. When he reached the third hut, Xiao Lulang said, "We're here." The hut was simple and crude. There wasn't even a decent table. The bed was made of a wooden bench and a wooden plank. If Grand Tutor Zhuang was here, he would feel sorry for his grandson's living environment. When Marquis Xianping was fighting, he had spent 10 days to half a month in the trenches. He had chewed on tree bark and grass roots. He had slept in a cowshed and squatted in a horse stable. His son shouldn't have been pampered. He should have been thrown into a mud pit for him to crawl and roll in. In the beginning, he couldn't bear to see Princess Xinyang raise Xiaoheng so delicately. He raised him like a porcelain doll. He was beautiful, but he couldn't stand up to one of his fingers. If he touched him, he was afraid that he would crush the little guy to death. There were 2 beds in the hut. One had a mosquito net, the other didn't. "Where's your bed?" Marquis Xianping asked. Xiao Lulang pointed to the one without a mosquito net. Marquis Xianping carried him to the side of the bed. After thinking, he called over an official outside. "Bring a chair over." "Yes. Yes." An assistant minister from the Ministry of Revenue acknowledged the order, and personally went to the shed that was used as the main office to bring over a bamboo chair. When Marquis Xianping carried the person into the room, everyone had a faint guess as to the identity of the person on his back. When Marquis Xianping placed him on a chair, that guess was confirmed. Xiao Lulang. It really was Xiao Lulang. It was already very strange for Marquis Xianping to appear here on a rainy night. What was even stranger was that he actually carried Xiao Lulang back. And from the looks of it, Xiao Lulang seemed to be injured. What exactly happened? Everyone was confused. Other than the official who moved the chair into the room, no one else dared to enter. The Minister of Revenue and Royal Prince walked over. "Marquis Xiao." Before the Minister of Revenue could finish his greeting, Marquis Xianping coldly interrupted. "Wooden bucket. Hot water." The Minister of Revenue opened his mouth in shock. "Yes, this official will do it right away." Strictly speaking, the Minister of Revenue was not a subordinate of Marquis Xianping, but Marquis Xianping was a first-rank martial marquis personally conferred by the Emperor. His status was illustrious and his title was honorable. He was not someone a third-rank official could neglect. The Minister of Revenue had someone bring over a brand new wooden bucket that had not been used before, and ordered the inspector to boil water. They came here to provide disaster relief, not to enjoy a vacation. Thus, they did not bring any servants to serve them. They paid for their daily meals and the villagers sent it over. The rest of the work was done by lower-ranked officials. While waiting for the hot water, Marquis Xianping began to take off Xiao Liulang's wet clothes. Xiao Lulang had a face of resistance. Marquis Xianping turned to Royal Prince and the other officials who were standing at the door. "He is thin-skinned. All of you leave." No one dared to disobey and tactfully left. Royal Prince asked, "Do you need help?" "No need." Marquis Xianping refused without thinking. Perhaps everyone here would give face to Royal Prince, but Marquis Xianping would not. It was not that he had a problem with Royal Prince. It was true that he and Grand Tutor Zhuang were at odds, but he was not narrow-minded enough to bicker with a junior. He only treated Royal Prince the same as everyone else. However, in everyone's eyes, this kind of equal treatment was a kind of contempt towards Royal Prince. The people who had not gone far all pricked up their ears, wanting to hear what was going on inside. However, Royal Prince did not say anything and just silently left, not forgetting to close the door for them. "Royal Prince, what is the relationship between Lord Xiao and Marquis Xianping? Why does Marquis Xianping seem to be very familiar with him?" On the way back, an official from the Ministry of Revenue asked Royal Prince, and "I am not sure either." Royal Prince was not familiar with this official from the Ministry of Revenue, so he did not discuss the relationship between Xiao Lulang and Marquis Xianping. However, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue who had just moved the chair for Marquis Xianping spoke. "A few months ago, there was a rumor in the capital that the new top scorer looked very similar to the deceased young Marquis of Zhaodu. Because of this, Marquis Xianping even went to..." Halfway through his words, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue realized that he had almost made a slip of the tongue. In the end, he was an official and should not criticize the emperor in front of his colleagues and Hanlin Academy officials. He coughed softly and changed the words, "went to see the emperor," to "went to see him specifically." He was talking about the day of Xiao Liulang's court examination. Marquis Xianping had gotten up early and rushed to support Xiao Lulang. This matter had once caused an uproar, causing many people to think that Xiao Liulang's top scorer title had come from an improper source, and that he had relied on his relationship with Marquis Xianping to reach the top of the list. "So it's because Lord Xiao looks like his deceased son?" The official of the Ministry of Revenue murmured. Everyone inexplicably ate a melon and more or less understood that Marquis Xianping had come to visit Xiao Lulang. How can it be such a coincidence? He didn't get injured earlier or later. When Marquis Xianping came, he got injured like this. He even had to carry him all the way back. Another person muttered. These words were just short of saying that Xiao Lulang was scheming and deliberately trying to gain Marquis Xianping's sympathy. "I really couldn't tell that he was this kind of person." How could I not tell? Have you all forgotten how he has been winning over the villagers these days? His scheming, I really can't catch up to him even if I ride a horse. She'll lower your voice. Don't let Marquis Xianping hear you. Later, you and I won't be able to bear the consequences. Disperse, disperse. Royal Prince and did not participate in their discussion. He knew that Xiao Lulang had gone to the mountains to pick herbs. As for why he got injured and why he met Marquis Xianping, he did not know. He went to Wu Yang's side. Tonight, he would probably have to squeeze in with Wu Yang. Inside the hut, Marquis Xianping quickly took off Xiao Liulang's top. When he went to take off Xiao Liulang's pants, Xiao Lulang tightened his belt and refused to let him do it. Marquis Xianping frowned and clicked his tongue. What's wrong? You go out too. I'll do it myself. Xiao Lulang said. Marquis Xianping looked him up and down and said with a chuckle. You fell like this. Do you still have the strength? If he had the strength, he wouldn't have let him take off his top. Right now he was tightly gripping his belt. In fact, he was using his eyes to refuse. Marquis Xianping said, You are my son. What have I not seen of you? When you were young, you ran around the courtyard naked. He looked at his pants. Let me tell you, not only have I seen it, I've also played it. Xiao Lulang, who wanted to be struck by lightning. The wooden bucket and hot water were ready. Marquis Xianping didn't call anyone to enter the hut. He brought the large wooden bucket and hot water in himself. Xiao Liulang's undoing of his belt annoyed him. He didn't have the strength and couldn't take it off for a long time. He simply threw him into the hot water. This rain seemed to have extinguished all the heat of the recent days. It brought a hint of the coolness of early autumn. Xiao Liulang's body was cold. It wasn't until he soaked in the hot water that he gradually warmed up. Xiao Lulang soaked in the hut. Marquis Xianping went to get water. He planned to take a cold bath, and then go back to the carriage to change clothes. He wasn't familiar with this place. He only vaguely remembered that a large group of people had come out of the largest hut. Perhaps they had gone there to get water. He went to the hut that was used as the central room and the office room. Everyone was there. Marquis Gu was also there. The large pile of food that Marquis Gu had brought was also there. The room was filled with the tempting aroma of meat and crispness. Everyone looked at Marquis Xianping in astonishment, their faces helpless. Marquis Xianping only needed a glance to understand. When a group of people had gathered here, he thought they were discussing some important business. So they were eating and drinking. The Minister of Revenue asked, Does Marquis Xiao want to eat? These were all bought from the capital by Marquis Gu's men. Marquis Xianping looked at Marquis Gu in the hut, and slightly narrowed his eyes. Everyone was here except for his son-in-law Xiao Lulang. Good, very good. Marquis Gu did not know of the relationship between Marquis Xianping and Xiao Lulang. He was wondering why Marquis Xianping had mixed up with that poor boy when he met Marquis Xianping's frightening gaze. His heart inexplicably thumped. The rain stopped in the latter half of the night. The next day was a sunny day. The morning light shone, and the sky was blue. The air was filled with the smell of soil and flowers that had been moistened by the rain. The disaster relief and farming mission had been completed. Everyone packed their bags and planned to eat something before returning to the capital. But no one had expected that when they pushed open the wooden door of the hut, they would be greeted by the mouth-watering aroma of meat buns. Everyone's saliva dripped down. Did they make meat buns today? The villagers know that we are leaving, so they specially made meat buns? Such fragrant meat buns. They were all officials of the capital. Even if they did not come from prominent families, at least they were not greedy for meat buns. But they did not know if it was because they had been vegetarian for too many days, but when they smelled the aroma of meat, they felt that they could not control themselves. No, this is not the aroma of ordinary meat buns. It's zhouji. Their meat buns have the aroma of sesame oil. That's right. It's zhouji's meat buns. Zhouji's meat buns were too famous in the capital. They only made 100 steamers a day, and they were sold out. Therefore, it was hard to get one even if they lined up. The aroma came from Royal Prince An's hut. Did Marquis Gu send people to buy it again? Marquis Gu is too considerate. He bought so many roast duck and crispy chicken last night. He bought it for Royal Prince An. We are basking in Royal Prince Anne's glory. It seems that we are basking in Royal Prince Anne's glory again today. Everyone chatted and couldn't wait to head towards Royal Prince Anne's hut. But when they reached the door, they were dumbfounded. Royal Prince Anne was not in the room. There was only Marquis Xianping and Xiao Lulang, and a youth in black. The table in front of the two was filled with meat buns. Other than the meat buns, there were wine-fermented meatballs sprinkled with egg drops, scallion pancakes with donkey meat, and braised lamb scorpion that could make the dogs next door cry. These were all Zhou Ji's specialties. Everyone swallowed their saliva. Was it really good to eat so sumptuous so early in the morning? But the three of them could not finish it. He bought so much for them, right? As expected, Xiao Lulang spoke faintly. Did you beat the bun seller to death? Who could finish so many buns? Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows and smiled. Then let's split it, Chongjing. Chongjing walked over and took the buns on the table, leaving one steamer for Marquis Xianping and Xiao Lulang. Everyone watched as Chongjing walked towards them with the buns. They were so excited that they could not express themselves. Then, they saw Chongjing walk past them expressionlessly. Everyone. Chongjing distributed the buns to the villagers. There was only one left. Chongjing gave it to the village's big black dog. Thus, everyone who was eating salted vegetables and cornbread experienced what it meant to be worse than a dog. After breakfast, Marquis Xianping packed Xiao Lulang and stuffed him into his carriage. Although Xiao Lulang strongly protested, his protests were ineffective. Everyone also sat on the Yaman's carriages. Marquis Gu was surprised to find that the wheels of his carriage had been removed. Marquis Gu exploded on the spot. Where are the wheels of my carriage? Who did it? Everyone sat in the carriage and looked at each other in dismay. Wasn't it obvious who did it? Just ask, who had a higher title than you? No one dared to say anything. It was Royal Prince Anne who spoke. Marquis Gu, if you don't mind, you can take my carriage back to the capital. That's the only way. Marquis Gu sighed and sat on Royal Prince Anne's carriage. This son-in-law was still the best. He knew how to help at the crucial moment. Before she could finish her sentence, she heard a loud bang. The wheels of Royal Prince Anne's carriage were removed as well. No one saw anyone do it. The two wheels seemed to have betrayed him and rolled out of the carriage. The carriage landed heavily on the ground. Marquis Gu's head hit the roof of the carriage, and there was a big bruise on his head. The Minister of Revenue did not want to get involved in this mess. However, he was entrusted by someone to take good care of Royal Prince Anne. But after taking care of Royal Prince Anne, he could not leave his future father-in-law. He could only invite the two of them into his carriage. Marquis Xianping brought Chongjing out of Xiao Liulang's hut. Chongjing was holding Xiao Liulang's luggage, and the herbs he picked these days. The Minister of Revenue thought for a while and cupped his hands towards Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping, for old Lady Zhao's sake, please be merciful. Marquis Xianping's mother, old Lady Xiao, and the Minister of Revenue's mother were cousins. Strictly speaking, they were cousins. All right. Marquis Xianping agreed. The Minister of Revenue secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that old Lady Zhao's face was still useful. In the next second, Marquis Xianping kicked off the wheels of the Minister of Revenue's carriage. He only said to be merciful. He did not say to be merciful. When it came to bullying people, Marquis Xianping was a professional. After this, no one dared to invite Marquis Gu into the carriage anymore. They all left with their tails between their legs. Royal Prince Anne also wanted to help but could not. He cupped his hands towards Marquis Gu and asked Wu Yang to find the wheels and install them. Then he returned to the capital alone. Marquis Gu was left alone on the ridge of the field. Behind him was a carriage without wheels. Even the horse had run away. It was as if he was abandoned by the world. Marquis Gu was miserable and miserable. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/111350900 HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile version reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 358. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. If other people thought that they could safely return to the capital after leaving Marquis Gu behind, then they were too naive. Marquis Xianping blocked their way and took off their wheels one by one. There was no village to the front and no shop to the back. Even if one called for help, the heavens and the earth would not respond. Of course, there were a few people who didn't offend Xiao Lulang, but they also had their wheels taken off by Marquis Xianping. This was helping them, not harming them. Marquis Xianping wouldn't make things difficult for them in the future, but if Marquis Xianping let them go, the people who didn't like Xiao Lulang might make things difficult for them. So, they might as well take them off together. Xiao Lulang didn't know anything about Marquis Xianping blocking their way and bullying them. He didn't sleep well last night and woke up with a slight headache. Not long after getting on the carriage, he fell into a deep sleep. This sleep was so deep that when he woke up, he was already in the capital. He opened his eyes and found himself lying in a room filled with familiarity. He immediately sat up and looked at the mermaid curtain on the bed, then looked at the Jiangnan screen with 6 fans of misty rain on the other side of the bed. He even turned around to look at the pillow he had just slept on. They were all things from his memory. Even the fragrance of fruit and flowers in the room was the same as in his memory. This was the princess's residence. Princess Xianyang and old Madame Xiao didn't have a good relationship. Old Madame Xiao didn't like Princess Xianyang's flesh and blood, and was very cold to Xiao Heng. Princess Xianyang brought her son to live in the princess's residence. Although it was connected to the Marquis's residence, Xiao Heng basically didn't go to old Madame Zhao's place. Xiao Lulang lifted the blanket and got out of bed. "Young Marquis, you're awake?" A servant girl walked into the room carrying a stack of clothes. He remembered this servant girl. She was called Shuhua. However, she was much more mature than 4 years ago. He wasn't used to her at first glance, but he could accept her current appearance with a second glance. Her expression and smile were so natural that it was as if he had never left in these 4 years. "Sister Shuhua. Sister Mizuwa." Another young maidservant stumbled in. It was Magpie, the daughter of a servant in the manor. She was only 8 years old 4 years ago, and now she was 12. When she saw Xiao Lulang, she smiled and bowed. "Young Marquis, you're awake. The Marquis is waiting for you to eat." If Xiao Lulang had not experienced life and death, he would have been dazed by this scene. He looked at them and said, "I'm not the young Marquis, you've got the wrong person. Where are my clothes?" A trace of panic flashed through the eyes of the 2 maidservants. Sure enough, he wasn't dreaming. They were acting. Xiao Lulang let out a sigh of relief. Everything was too familiar. For a moment, he almost thought that the 4 years of wandering among the commoners was just a dream, and that the terrible fire was just a nightmare. If those were all dreams, then the countryside and the Jadewater Alley were also a pipe dream. He slowly sat down on the chair, digesting the lingering fear in his heart. Magpie quickly came forward to pour tea for him. "I'll do it myself." He refused. Magpie hesitantly retreated to the side, looking at Shuhua with apprehension. Shuhua shook her head at her, indicating for her not to speak. "My clothes?" Xiao Lulang said again. "Yes." Shuhua went to the wardrobe, opened the door, and found Xiao Liulang's luggage. She secretly glanced at Xiao Lulang several times. Although they looked alike, their temperaments were too different. The young Marquis never had a straight face with them, always talking and laughing. He was a little master that warmed people's hearts. Moreover, the little master's legs were not lame. "You can all leave." Marquis Xianping, who had been listening outside the door, saw that his plan was not working and could only helplessly appear. The 2 maidservants retreated as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. He did not need to go to Hanlin Academy today, so he found a set of normal clothes to change into. Then he said to Marquis Xianping, "You don't need to test me anymore. I'm not Xiaoheng." Marquis Xianping said, "I'm not testing," Xiao Lulang interrupted him. "Don't think that as long as I'm still Xiaoheng, you can make up for the guilt in your heart. Even if you test me 100 times, 1,000 times, I'm still Xiao Lulang, the illegitimate child of Chunyun's mother, not the legitimate son of Marquis Xianping." Marquis Xianping's eyes darkened. "Then tell me, is there really someone who looks exactly the same in this world?" "Is it really the same?" Xiao Lulang asked back. Marquis Xianping's gaze fell on his right eye. There was originally a teardrop mole here, but now it was gone. Xiao Lulang said, "Of course, if you just want to use me as a substitute for the young Marquis, then it's up to you." No one could replace Xiaoheng. He did not need a substitute for Xiaoheng. He only wanted Xiaoheng, his son Xiaoheng. These words pierced Marquis Xianping's heart to the point of bleeding. Otherwise, why would he say that he was his son? He knew what words would stab him the most. Xiao Lulang did not say anything else. He picked up his luggage. "Where's my medicine?" "In the courtyard," Marquis Xianping said. Xiao Lulang walked out without looking back. Marquis Xianping looked at his determined and stubborn back and suddenly called out to him, "Don't you want to see your mother?" Xiao Liulang's steps paused. His hand holding his luggage slowly clenched. "I want to see her." "Does she want to see me?" Xiao Lulang left without any hesitation. "Hiss. Little brat." Marquis Xianping's teeth hurt. Steward Lu walked over from the other end of the corridor. He entered the room and asked, "Marquis, the young master still hasn't admitted his identity?" Marquis Xianping's fist slammed on the table and his mouth twitched. "Little stubborn donkey. Is it really the young Marquis? Could there have been a mistake?" Steward Lu asked worriedly. He paused and then muttered, "It doesn't matter if there's a mistake. After all, they are both Marquis' children." Marquis Xianping glared at him. Steward Lu smiled embarrassedly. "I'm joking. Since ancient times, there had been a difference between the direct and concubines. Moreover, this was an illegitimate child. How could he let an illegitimate child mix up the direct bloodline of the Marquis Fu?" Marquis Xianping thoughtfully rubbed his chin. Could it be that only his mother can control him? Chunyun's mother is already dead. Steward Lu kindly reminded. Marquis Xianping gave him a death stare. "You don't want this month's salary?" Steward Lu's entire body trembled, saying, "Ah, Marquis, you are talking about the princess. But if the princess can't do anything to him?" Marquis Xianping looked at the disappearing figure at the end of the courtyard, his gaze deep. "Then I will believe that he really isn't Xiaoheng." Xiao Lulang sat in Marquis Xianping's carriage back to Jadewater Alley. When he arrived home, it was already dark. His family did not know that he had returned today, and each went to do their own things. Only Yaoshi was strolling in the courtyard to digest her food. "Mother." He went forward to greet her. Yaoshi said in pleasant surprise, "Lulang is back? You haven't eaten yet, right?" "Yeah." "Hey, Yuya," or put down the work in her hands and walked over. Son-in-law." Yaoshi ordered. "Go make something for son-in-law to eat." "Okay." Yuya complied and went to the kitchen. This time, he had gone to the countryside to provide disaster relief, and did not bring back any gifts. Other than a basket of medicinal ingredients, there was only some dried fish that the villagers had dried themselves. Xiao Lulang took out the dried fish. "What is this?" A bag of strange medicinal powder fell out from under the dried fish. "This is a kind of dried flower powder. It was given by an auntie. Apparently, it can be used as rouge. It was Uncle Zhang's family's auntie. After learning that he was married, she gave him this bag of dried flower powder. Naturally, this could not compare to the rouge from the rouge shop, but it was a bit of goodwill from the villagers, so he accepted it." Yaoshi said, "Jiao Jiao does not need it now." Yaoshi's meaning was that Gu Jiao had a chastity mark on her face, and did not like to dress up. In the future, when the chastity mark was gone, perhaps she would like to be beautiful herself. Xiao Lulang misunderstood, and thought that Yaoshi was saying that Gu Jiao was ugly. He said, "She does not need it to be beautiful." Yao Shi was stunned. Son-in-law was praising her daughter for being beautiful? Although she also felt that her daughter was beautiful, she was still Jiao Jiao's mother. Naturally, a mother would think that her daughter was beautiful. Xiao Liulong's serious appearance made Yao Shi laugh. The young couple had been married for so long. Although they had always lived in separate rooms, they had never said that they had not consummated their marriage. In large families, married couples lived in separate courtyards. In order to not affect the men's studies, many scholars lived in separate rooms. Thus, if it were not for this birthmark, the young couple's relationship would not have aroused any suspicion. Yao Shi had originally planned to continue to pretend that she did not know, but now that it had been brought up, Yao Shi felt that perhaps telling her son-in-law would not be a problem. At the very least, her son-in-law had seriously refuted her. This meant that in his heart he did not dislike her daughter's appearance. He treated Jiao Jiao with sincerity. What was there that was not worth knowing the truth? Actually, Yao Shi cleared her throat and resisted the awkwardness in her heart. She said, "The mark on Jiao Jiao's face is not a birthmark. It is a chastity mark." Bang! A figure fell down from the courtyard wall. Dong! A person knocked into the doorway and staggered until he hit the door. The former was Gu Chengfeng. The latter was Gu Changqing. This was not the end. There was a clatter at the door, followed by a clatter. Surprisingly, the copper candied fruit box in Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand had fallen to the ground. The old chancellor, who was standing at the newly opened door between the two residences, did not know whether to enter or leave. He had come to deliver some brown sugar glutinous rice cake to Zhuang Gents. How did he hear this kind of thing? The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/111347859. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 359. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. Yao Shi was so shocked by the commotion that she stood up from her chair. She clearly didn't see a single person just now, so how did so many people appear out of thin air after she finished speaking? They didn't come when they didn't, but they all came when they did. Was this arranged? Also, it was fine that Gu Changqing and the matriarch appeared here. One came to see the twins and the other came to play cards. But what was up with Gu Chengfeng? What was he doing climbing up the wall of their house? Yao Shi was so shocked that she couldn't even speak. Of the 5 people present, it was unknown who was the most embarrassed. Was it the 4 people who accidentally heard this huge secret? Or was it Xiao Lulang who was caught in the whirlpool of secrets? In short, the 5 people all had different expressions and didn't speak for a long time. The atmosphere became more and more awkward. In the end, it was Gu Qingfeng's nose that itched and he couldn't help but sneeze. Only then did the strange silence in the courtyard be broken. That Gu. Empress Dowager Zhuang wanted to call Gu Changqing, but she couldn't remember his name. Her mind was filled with this guy who won money from her. So angry, Gu Changqing came back to his senses and turned to bow to Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was dressed as an old lady. He didn't call the Empress Dowager. After all, she was traveling incognito. He was afraid that the walls would hear her identity. Empress Dowager Zhuang gave a look to the candied fruit jar on the ground. Gu Changqing understood and endured the pain in his head. He picked up the candied fruit jar on the ground. Fortunately, it was made of iron and didn't break. Empress Dowager Zhuang hugged her beloved candied fruit jar and entered the courtyard with a complicated expression. How could it not be complicated? The little great-grandson she had been looking forward to for so long wasn't even a shadow. Was this the truth behind why she couldn't wait for her little great-grandson? Her mentality was collapsing. Her complicated and painful gaze fell on Xiao Liulong's body. Starting from his head, it slowly moved down until it reached an unspeakable place. It wasn't like they hadn't slept together before. Could it be they couldn't? Xiao Liulang felt his scalp go numb. What kind of look was that? However, not only did Empress Dowager Zhuang have this expression, even the old chancellor was synchronized and looked at Xiao Liulang sympathetically. As a man, this was a little embarrassing. I thought you had only injured one leg. Xiao Liulang felt terrible. He was still trying to figure out how the birthmark on Gu Jiao's face could be the mark of chastity. Now he was being despised and sympathized with for no reason. Where was the logic? Yaoshi looked at everyone's speechless expressions and then looked at Xiao Liulang, who seemed to have swallowed Coptis. She thought to herself, do I need to explain the reason for the chastity mark? Hey, does anyone else want to hear it? Forget it. Let's talk about it. Yaoshi said. The midwife that helped me deliver the child did not know how to use the chastity sand, but she did not dare say that she did not know. She was worried that we would not give her that much money. So she went to ask the abbot of the temple, who knew that the abbot drank too much that night and accidentally put it on Jiao Jiao's face. It was also because of this birthmark that the servant misunderstood that Jiao Jiao was not the child that I gave birth to and that Jinyu, who did not have a birthmark, was. Although this matter had passed for a long time, every time it was mentioned, Yaoshi could not help but feel heartache and regret. She did not know whose fault she should blame. Should she not have given birth halfway, or should she not have gone to find that midwife in the countryside? Yaoshi was immersed in her sad emotions. The other people in the courtyard were not on the same channel as her. There were only 6 words in everyone's mind. Chastity sand did not consummate the marriage. Gu Qingfeng put his arm around Xiao Liulong's shoulder. Brother, tell me honestly, do you have any hidden troubles? Xiao Liulong's face darkened. Gu Jiao went to see a patient and was busy until late at night. When she stepped into the courtyard, she saw the elders of the family sitting neatly in the central room. Her great-aunt and son-in-law were also there. The last time the two of them sat together was when the emperor came to Baishui Lane to recuperate. However, they sat separately and did not speak. Ever since her great-aunt recovered her memories, this was the first time Gu Jiao saw the two of them so amiable. Gu Chongqing and Gu Qingfeng also came. What did you come here for? Gu Jiao asked Gu Qingfeng. Gu Chongqing's lips curled up imperceptibly. It seemed that in his sister's heart, this second brother who had drunk wine with her, ridden horses with her, and played water with her, did not have much weight. He could not come to Baishui Lane as he pleased. Gu Qingfeng snorted and said unhappily, You think I wanted to come? Chenglin ran out of hair growth ointment. Gu Jiao made a no sound. Recently, she had been so busy that she had forgotten about Gu Qinglin's little bald spot. Wait a moment. Gu Jiao went to the east room to put down the small basket and took out the medicine box. She opened the box and saw that there was indeed a box of hair growth ointment inside. The medicine box could not only determine the medicine needed by the patient, but also remember the patient's course of illness and the dosage. It was very useful, but it would be even better if there were no more strange things. Gu Jiao took out the hair growth ointment and handed it to Gu Qingfeng. Here, 100 taels. Gu Qingfeng immediately exploded. You charge me 100 taels for such a small box of ointment? That's too much. Gu Jiao's expression did not change. It's the price of family affection. The price of family affection specially set for you. If someone else came, it would be 1 tael. Gu Qingfeng reluctantly took out the banknotes. Gu Jiao happily accepted it. Everyone stared at her without blinking. Gu Jiao felt that the atmosphere was strange from the moment she entered the courtyard. And now it was getting stranger and stranger. Did something happen? Why are you all looking at me like this? She asked. Madam, Yuya, came over with a bowl of tonic soup on a tray. The soup you wanted is ready. Yuya, put the tonic soup on the table. The bowl was black and looked like it was made by Xiao Liulang. Empress Dowager Zhuang pushed the bowl of soup in front of Gu Jiao. Drink it, it was specially made for you. You've worked hard recently and you've lost weight. You need to take care of your body. She said these words without blushing. Everyone secretly gave Empress Dowager Zhuang a thumbs up. You're still the best. Oh. Although it did not look good, Gu Jiao was not picky. Since it was specially prepared for her by her family, she could not waste it. Gu Jiao held the bowl of soup, took a deep breath and gulped it down. Wretch. It was disgusting. Gu Jiao almost vomited. Everyone looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang. Was there really no problem with the soup? Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. How could there be a problem? It was a professional nourishment for 30 years. The previous emperor's concubines all drank this tonic soup, so their bodies were better than the other. Gu Jiao felt nauseous. She covered her chest and took a deep breath. She inadvertently glanced around and found that the table was uniformly looking at her. She blinked and shook her little head. Oh, I'm not pregnant, am I? In the study, Xiao Lulang, who heard this sentence, spat out a mouthful of tea. Everyone's expression twitched. How did you manage to lie through your teeth like that? Why are you looking at me like that? Gu Jiao asked. Have you consummated your marriage? Gu Qingfeng asked straightforwardly. Gu Chongqing kicked him under the table. Gu Jiao did not know that there was nothing left of her. She stuck out her small chest and said righteously, Why haven't I consummated my marriage? Of course I have. Is it written on my face that I'm a virgin? Everyone looked at her chastity mark. Yes. Gu Jiao. Xiao Lulang couldn't bear to listen any further. He wished he could bury himself with books. What kind of brother and sister were they? One dared to ask and the other dared to answer. Were they not ashamed? Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao, are you there? Xiaobao has a stomachache. Can you go and take a look at him? Master Zhao's anxious voice came from the door, interrupting the conversation. Gu Jiao went next door to see Xiaobao. Empress Dowager Zhuang waved her hand and said, Okay, let's go. Yuya make Jiao Jiao a bowl of this soup every 3 days. You must watch her finish it. Yuya replied, Yes. Gu Chongqing originally came to visit the twins. However, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan were resting at Nanxiang and Master Lu's place. Gu Chongqing had to leave with Gu Qingfeng. Ahem, I will go too. I want to see how the homework in Jingkong is going. The old chancellor went next door. Little Jingkong was doing homework at his place tonight. Empress Dowager Zhuang went to Xiao Lulang and little Jingkong's west room. Eunuch Qin followed. Empress Dowager? Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the bed and called the accompanying imperial masters. She pointed at the bed and said seriously, Split it. The imperial masters. Eunuch Qin. After a loud noise, Empress Dowager Zhuang ran out of the west room waving her phoenix claws. Oh, Jiao Jiao. Eunuch Qin and little Deng fought. The bed collapsed. Eunuch Qin trembled. What did it have to do with him? Also, what kind of fight could collapse the bed? These words didn't sound right. Gu Jiao was not called over by Empress Dowager Zhuang, but little Jingkong came over first. He had just finished his homework and heard his great-aunt say that the bed collapsed. He was young and curious, so he went to see whose bed collapsed. So it's my bed that collapsed. The little guy stood in front of the collapsed bed with his hands on his hips, and was stunned for a few seconds. Then he laughed. That's great. His bed collapsed. He had no place to sleep tonight. He could only squeeze with Jiao Jiao. Brother-in-law, I want to take a bath. He wanted to wash himself clean and smell good, then put himself on Jiao Jiao's bed. After a quarter of an hour, the little handsome monk came out of the bath and changed into dry pajamas. He smelled good from head to toe. I can go sleep with Jiao Jiao. He skipped to the east room. However, before he could step in, Empress Dowager Zhuang picked him up. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, You and I will go back to the palace tonight. Little Jingkong's little body trembled. Why? Empress Dowager Zhuang said, I'm lonely. Little Jingkong strongly protested. I want to sleep with Jiao Jiao. Empress Dowager Zhuang refused heartlessly. No, you won't have a little great-grandson if you sleep with him. I want a little great-grandson. Little Jingkong flapped his little arms and legs in the air and complained. Why do you want a little great-grandson? Am I not cute enough? Empress Dowager Zhuang was full of questions again. She could not win against him, so she stopped talking and directly carried him out of the courtyard and into the carriage. Because the bed collapsed, Xiao Lulang could only sleep in the east room tonight. Gu Jiao had no objection. After washing up, the two of them lay on the soft bed. Little Jing Kong was used to sleeping on hard beds in the temple, so the mattress in the west room was less than in the east room. Xiao Lulang had slept on this bed before, but he did not know if it was because of his different state of mind, but the feeling of lying on it tonight was particularly different from before. The mattress seemed to be softer, reminding him of her delicate little body. The pillow was full of her breath and fragrance. Every breath made him feel short of breath and hot in his heart. She was lying flat beside him, and her breathing was even and long. Xiao Lulang could not sleep. He gently turned his head, and saw that their long hair seemed to be entangled. Suddenly, there was a hint of ambiguity in the night. The dream he had before flashed through his mind uncontrollably. He tried to erase the inappropriate images from his mind, but the harder he tried, the clearer they became. Even her smooth breathing seemed to have a hint of seduction in his ears. "Husband." She suddenly turned to look at him. Xiao Liulang's heart skipped a beat. He felt guilty for being distracted. His expression tensed as he looked at the ceiling and asked seriously, "What's wrong?" Gu Jiao straightened up on her elbows and looked at him. "Nothing. I just want to ask you if everything went well in the countryside. Did those people bully you?" "No," he said. Gu Jiao asked strangely, "What's wrong with your voice? It's mute." It would have been better if she hadn't said this. Once she said this, Xiao Lulang found it even harder to control himself. His throat moved, and he didn't dare to look at her. "I probably talked too much during the day." "Oh." Gu Jiao lay beside him. He did not dare to look at her, but she looked at him frankly. "Then I'll get you some water." He was just about to say no, but she had already got off the bed and poured him a glass of cold water. Xiao Lulang opened his mouth, but he still took it and drank it. After drinking the glass of cold water, the thoughts in his mind seemed to fade a little. Gu Jiao took the glass and put it on the table. She climbed back into bed and lay down beside him. "Can't you sleep?" she asked. "No," he said in a hoarse voice, "sleep." But Gu Jiao waited for a while, but he still did not fall asleep. Was there something bothering him? But since he did not say, she did not ask. Gu Jiao thought for a while, then slowly moved towards him until she was beside him. She pulled away one of his arms and turned sideways to rest her little head on it. She hugged him, and like an adult coaxing a child, she gently patted his shoulder. She coaxed him very seriously, even though her movements were a little clumsy. Xiao Lulang did not know whether to laugh or cry. "What are you doing?" Gu Jiao widened her eyes and said with a serious face, "I'm coaxing you to sleep. Don't worry, I'm not doing anything. I'm a serious person." At first, the serious person, Gu Jiao, was indeed patting his shoulder to coax him to sleep. But as she patted him, it felt so good that she wanted to move around. She stole a glance at Xiao Lulang. Xiao Liulang's eyes were closed, and his breathing was even and long. He seemed to be asleep. Gu Jiao became bold and touched his small chest muscles. After touching his chest muscles, she moved on to his abdominal muscles. After touching his abdominal muscles, she moved on to his waist muscles. When she used her finger to poke his waist that didn't have a trace of excess fat, Xiao Lulang suddenly opened his eyes. Xiao Lulang grabbed her restless little hand and flipped her over, pressing her under his body. His movements were so fast and domineering that even Gu Jiao could not react in time. Gu Jiao looked at him in a daze. He domineeringly locked her wrists on both sides. This was the first time that Gu Jiao felt the domineering power of a man from him in a sober state. It was so exciting. Gu Jiao thought. The little puppy she had been raising suddenly turned into an adult wolf with an irresistible domineering and wild nature. He stared at her and said, "Aren't you still young?" Gu Jiao blinked. His eyes deepened and his hoarse voice came out from his throat. "If you tease me again, I won't care." "Oh." Gu Jiao's eyes moved, and she slowly pulled her wrists out of his strong palm. He had used too much strength just now and her wrists were red. Xiao Lulang was a little regretful, but he did not show it on his face. Tonight, He had been set up by the elders in his family. Naturally, he would not be obedient, so he did not intend to do anything to her from the beginning. But this girl was too mischievous. Did she forget that he was already 18 years old? Did she still think that he was that immature brat from before? A 14-year-old girl who was older by a year was completely different from a 17-year-old boy who was older by a year. He had grown up and was a real man. Did she know that in his countless dreams, there was no longer a sky full of fire, but the boundless moonlight, the sleepless lights, and endless intertwining and possession? He could not lie on the same bed with her like a year ago and not let his imagination run wild. Gu Jiao rubbed her red wrists and did not speak for a long time. Xiao Lulang thought that she had been scared by him, and should know to restrain herself. Unexpectedly, in the next second, she stretched out her arms and lay flat. Xiao Lulang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1113222818. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 360. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. The next day, before the sun rose, everyone in the family got up early. In the past, Gu Jiao was the first to get up, but today when she walked out of the room, she found that Madame Yao, the old chancellor, Nurse Fong, and Yuya were all gathered in the central room. Not only that, Eunuch Qin also came. What was going on? Good morning. Gu Jiao greeted them. Everyone looked at the birthmark on her face and sighed. Gu Jiao, why do you all look a bit disappointed? Is my status in the family already so low? You don't want to see me anymore? Everyone exchanged knowing looks. Thus, after Gu Jiao drank a bowl of tonic soup, Xiao Lulang also had a bowl of tonic soup in front of him during breakfast. Eunuch Qin specially emphasized, it's venison soup. It's very good for men. Xiao Lulang. Xiao Liulang's anger was stuck in his throat and couldn't go up or down. Last night, when a certain someone was lying down, he really thought that she was ready to tease him to the end. He hesitated out of conscience, and then he heard a certain someone's small snoring sound. He was stunned on the spot. Okay? He was the one who was teased, and the one who couldn't eat was also him. In the end, he was the one who was misunderstood. Where could he go to reason? Xiao Lulang drank the venison soup with a dark face. Eunuch Qin returned to the palace with a smile. The officials of the Ministry of Revenue and the Hanlin Academy finally arrived in the capital after a long journey of a day and night. The Minister of Revenue didn't dare to delay, and reported to the emperor with his 2 legs that were about to break. He didn't make any mistakes about Xiao Lulang, nor did he deliberately erase Xiao Liulang's contributions. First, there were Hanlin officials who accompanied him to record this trip, and second, Marquis Xianping was standing in the throne room. That's right, this fellow who never attended morning court sessions and only knew how to sleep and had made an unprecedented appearance today. The Minister of Revenue didn't have a bad impression of Xiao Lulang. However, he received orders from Grand Tutor Zhuang to give the credit to Royal Prince and as much as possible. As for Xiao Lulang, he didn't do anything, so there was no need to mention him. However, when the Minister of Revenue thought of how he had almost broken his leg, he had no doubt that if he dared to say anything about Xiao Lulang, the Marquis of Xianping would remove his leg in front of the emperor. The Minister of Revenue reported truthfully. Xiao Lulang and Royal Prince Anne's performance was remarkable. They both made contributions. Although the Minister of Revenue intended to give Royal Prince Anne more opportunities to make contributions, Xiao Lulang had done too many things in the countryside. The emperor thought it was good. Both of them were pillars of the Zhao kingdom. Among the three tripod rankings, the Zhuangyuan and Zhuangyuan had already begun to show their talents in the 6 ministries. Only the Tanhualang was still unknown. However, this couldn't be rushed. After all, Xiao Lulang and Royal Prince in both had backings. They didn't have to worry about being suppressed. Ning Ziyuan's background wasn't as good. He still needed to sharpen his skills in the Imperial Hanlin Academy. The emperor gave Xiao Lulang and Royal Prince and each a piece of calligraphy, and had Eunuch Wei deliver it to the Imperial Hanlin Academy. After court, the emperor returned to Pure Flower's palace. "Your Majesty." A young nun walked over with a box of food. She bowed to him and said, "Imperial concubine dowager personally made some pastries and had this humble nun deliver them to your Majesty. By the way, Imperial concubine dowager also had this humble nun ask if your Majesty has been well. Imperial concubine dowager hasn't seen your Majesty for a few days, and is very worried about you." The emperor paused slightly. That's right. He hadn't visited Imperial concubine dowager for a few days. This would have been impossible in the past. As long as Imperial concubine dowager was in the palace, he would pay his respects every day. Could it be that he was still angry at Imperial concubine dowager for hiding her relationship with Gu Chao? Even though Imperial concubine dowager had chosen him in the end, did he still have a knot in his heart? "Your Majesty, if there's nothing else, this humble nun will take her leave." The young nun handed the pastries to Eunuch Wei before turning to leave. The emperor glanced at the box of food in Eunuch Wei's hands. Eunuch Wei understood and opened the box. "Your Majesty, these are date paste pastries." These were his favorite pastries. In order to personally make them for him, Imperial concubine Jing had learned from the imperial chef. He remembered the days after Empress Dowager Zhuang was banished to the cold palace. He, Imperial concubine Jing, and Ning'an were ostracized. They didn't even have a decent hot dish for his birthday. Thus, his Imperial concubine Dowager Zhuang personally went to the tree to pick dates and made a date paste pastry with crisp dates. It didn't taste too good, but it was the best taste he could remember at the time. The emperor picked up a piece of date paste pastry and tasted it. It was also made with crisp dates. Memories flooded his mind, and he let out a long sigh. "Go to the nunnery and tell Imperial concubine dowager that I'll accompany her for dinner tonight." "Yes," Eunuch Wei replied. The second master had recently recruited another doctor. To be precise, he had poached a doctor from Rejuvenation Hall. He had once been kicked out of Rejuvenation Hall, and everyone was waiting to see him make a fool of himself. However, he had led Miracle Hand Hall to rise in the capital. Miracle Hand Hall's business grew bigger and bigger, and countless doctors wanted to seek refuge under him. After careful selection, he had chosen a doctor with the surname Miao. His medical skills were good, but his character was excellent. The second master had to poach Dr. Miao for a long time before he was finally persuaded. After Dr. Miao came, he took on a lot of work, so Gu Jiao wasn't as busy. Gu Jiao went to find the old beggar to play chess, but unexpectedly, the old beggar wasn't there. Gu Jiao waited for a while, but didn't see him. She put on her mask and changed her route to the martial arts center. "Little brother Gu." A middle-aged man with a big belly and a ruddy face called out to her. Gu Jiao looked at him and used her eyes to ask, "What's the matter?" Her attitude wasn't warm, and could even be called cold. However, the other party didn't mind. Anyone who had seen Gu Jiao compete knew how fiery her temper was. She was already giving him face by being willing to communicate with him. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Little brother, I've seen every one of your matches. You're very bold, and your fighting style is very arrogant. You've also improved a lot. Forgive me for being blunt, but this kind of small martial arts center is no longer suitable for your strength. Are you interested in trying out other places?" So he was here to poach her. Gu Jiao looked at him and took out a small notebook to write. "Is there a decent expert at the place you're talking about?" Listen, what kind of arrogant tone was this? However, he liked it very much. This young man indeed had the qualifications to be arrogant. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Of course there is. I just don't know if you dare to go." Gu Jiao lightly wrote. Could it be the netherworld? Ha ha ha. The middle-aged man was amused by Gu Jiao's arrogance and humor. Little brother, don't worry. With such a good seedling like you, how could I bear to let you go to that kind of place? Let's not talk too much. I'll directly bring little brother there. Gu Jiao left the martial arts center and let Xiao Sanzi go back first. She sat in the middle-aged man's carriage and went to an embroidery building in the north of the city. This was Gu Jiao's first time coming to the north of the city. Jade Water Alley was located in the south of the city. Marquis Ding En's manor was in the southeast. Her range of diagnosis was mostly from the south to the east of the city. Everything here made Gu Jiao feel unfamiliar, but there was also an inexplicable attraction. Gu Jiao followed the middle-aged man through the embroidery building and arrived at a dye house. Underneath the dye house was an underground martial arts center. From the middle-aged man's mouth, Gu Jiao learned that the martial arts center did not have a name. Normally, when people mentioned it, they would just say come to the Narcissus embroidery building. The martial arts center was very large. It was almost as large as 4 Taihe martial arts centers. If Gu Jiao had not seen it with her own eyes, she would not have believed that someone had built such a large underground place. In the center of the martial arts center were 4 martial arts stages. This was the same as the martial arts centers. Around them were countless rooms. The middle-aged man did not say what they were used for. The middle-aged man waved his hand and pointed, saying, "Do you see those rooms with gourds hanging on their doors? You must not go in." "Why?" Gu Jiao asked with her eyes. The middle-aged man explained, "Those are the rooms of experts. If you rashly charge in, you will be beaten to death." So it was allowed to kill people here. The 4 martial arts stages were carrying out martial arts. Compared to the Taihe martial arts centers, the fights here were much more bloody and violent. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. Gu Jiao felt all the blood in her body begin to boil. Her ruthless nature began to stir again. Gu Jiao restrained her killing intent. Under the guidance of the middle-aged man, she arrived at the east side of the martial arts center. "Yo, look who old he managed to trick over today." A young man who was organizing the accounts raised his head and looked at Gu Jiao meaningfully. "Such a tender young master, old he, you have the heart to do this? Aren't you afraid that he will be beaten to death? So people could die in the martial arts arena." Gu Jiao had a clearer understanding of the underground martial arts center. "Let's first bet 50 taels of silver," the young man said to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao frowned. "You still want money? I'll do it. I'll pay for this little brother." The middle-aged man generously took out a 50 taels banknote and slapped it on the table. The young man looked at Gu Jiao with an even more thought-provoking gaze. "To be able to make old he, this miser, pluck your feathers. It seems like you have some ability. All right, I will take good care of you and try not to let you die too early. Can I look around?" Gu Jiao wrote in her little notebook. "Old he said, you can. But remember what I said just now. Don't go near the room with a gourd hanging on the door." Gu Jiao nodded. She left the martial arts center. Behind her, the young man and old he's conversation could be heard. "No way, you really want this kid to compete? He's even thinner than me. And he's a mute. Don't you remember the lesson from last time? You brought back an expert, but in the end, he was beaten to death with a single punch. Trust my eyes this time. Don't arrange someone too strong for the first round. Let him practice first." Gu Jiao gradually walked away. The two people's conversation was gradually drowned out by the cheers below the stage. It was Gu Jiao's first day here. She just wanted to familiarize herself with the environment, but she didn't expect to see an acquaintance here. A person wearing a black cloak walked in front of her. The cloak was wrapped so tightly that her face couldn't be seen. But the moment the person opened the door, the hood of the cloak fell off. Gu Jiao looked carefully. "It's her? Digression. Who was this person? Who was this person? A Crown Princess B. Imperial concubine Jing." Everyone has to post a book review. Paragraphs and chapters reviews won't reward coins. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/111320010. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 361. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. After the hood of her cloak fell off, she quickly put it back on. Then, under the escort of a man in black, she entered a room with a gourd hanging on it. Gu Jiao wanted to follow, but after taking a few steps, someone grabbed her shoulder. Gu Jiao tried to backhand him, but the other person grabbed her wrist. "It's me." The other person was also wearing a mask like Gu Jiao, but Gu Jiao was all too familiar with this voice. Gu Jiao put down her hand and looked at Gu Chongqing, who was dressed as a chivalrous man, with a strange expression. "Why are you here?" Gu Chongqing put down his hand, looked around, and asked her. "I should be the one asking you that. Why are you here?" Gu Jiao touched her mask. It was here, so how did he recognize her? Gu Chongqing's mouth twitched. He had already recognized her when she tricked him into calling her father, okay? Other than her, no one else in this world had such a bad taste. "You still haven't told me why you're here." Gu Chongqing looked at her seriously. She shouldn't have come to this kind of place. Even if she had some skills, it was still too dangerous. Gu Jiao paused and said, "If I said I was passing by and wanted to borrow the toilet, would you believe me?" Gu Chongqing. Without waiting for Gu Chongqing to respond, Gu Jiao asked, "What about you? Are you also here to borrow the toilet?" Gu Chongqing. Many people looked in Gu Chongqing's direction. Their gazes were not unfamiliar. It was obviously not the first time they had seen him here. "Why are they looking at you?" Gu Jiao asked. "It's nothing." Gu Chongqing grabbed Gu Jiao's wrist and led her into a room diagonally opposite. Gu Jiao noticed that there was also a gourd hanging on the door of this room. All right. After all, she wasn't the one who barged in. The furnishings in the room were very simple. There was a screen, a bed, a table and chairs, and some antique furniture. It had a simple and heavy feeling, which could easily make one's heart tremble. Gu Jiao was more curious. Gu Chongqing looked at her fearless appearance and helplessly shook his head. Those who knew would say that she had come to the most dangerous place in Zhao country. Those who didn't know would think that she was strolling through a vegetable garden. "Have a seat," Gu Chongqing said as he sat down on the chair beside the table. Gu Jiao sat down opposite him. She stopped looking around and looked at him. "Are you really here to borrow the toilet?" Gu Chongqing's action of pouring tea paused. The corner of his mouth twitched as he said, "I'm here to find someone." Gu Jiao said, "Oh, what a coincidence. Me too." Gu Chongqing looked at her with an indescribable expression. "Didn't you just say that you wanted to borrow the toilet?" Gu Jiao waved her hand. "It's about the same." Gu Chongqing simply didn't know how to continue the conversation. Gu Jiao usually didn't talk much, but this underground martial arts field really piqued her curiosity. She asked, "What is this place? Is it just an ordinary martial arts field?" Ordinary. She was probably the only one who would think so. However, anyone who truly understood the situation would at least be somewhat fearful if they did not say that they would be terror-stricken upon hearing this. Gu Chongqing put the tea he had poured in her hand and said, "It's mainly a martial arts competition, but it also does some other business. Many people will choose to come here to trade. First, it's confidential. Second, it's safe. The martial arts field takes 20% of the profits." Gu Jiao said, 20%? That's not a small amount. If they traded 10,000 taels of silver, they would have to pay the martial arts field 2,000 taels of silver. So the martial arts field earned this much? But what did that person come here for? Did they come to watch the martial arts competition, or to find someone to trade. While she was thinking, waves of excited roars and shouts came from outside. Kill! 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 The underground martial arts field had a total of 4 rings: east, west, south, and north. At this time, there were experts fighting in all 4 rings. However, the one with the most spectators, the one with the fiercest bets, and the one with the most enthusiastic cheers was the East Ring. Coincidentally, their room was facing the East Ring. Gu Jiao saw a bare-chested muscular man press another expert to the ground and wildly beat him up. His face was savage, and his attacks were merciless. If this level of beating continued, the other person would probably be beaten to death. If this were Taiha Martial Arts Club, this fight would have been stopped long ago. As if sensing Gu Jiao's confusion, Gu Chongqing explained, "The experts here have all signed a life and death agreement. They are responsible for their own deaths." This made Gu Jiao think of the underground martial arts field in her previous life. Just like the underground martial arts field, that place was filled with blood and violence. No one cared about the life and death of the fighters. They even hoped to see someone beaten to death. Gu Jiao had once been one of the fighters. She was the youngest and the weakest. She had been sent to the martial arts field by her godfather along with her companion. Half a year later, Gu Jiao had come out, but her companion had stayed behind forever. Gu Jiao looked at the savage and violent scene in the ring without the slightest ripple in her eyes. That's a person's clothes. It's so strange. Gu Jiao's gaze moved away from the East Ring and fell on the South Ring. Gu Chongqing took a look and said, "That's a Turk." Gu Jiao was surprised. "There are Turks here?" The Turks were a large race outside of the 6 kingdoms. Even though they claimed to be a country, they had never received the recognition of the 6 kingdoms. In the eyes of the 6 kingdoms, the Turks were even inferior to the 3 inferior kingdoms. However, the Turks were exceptionally brave, and they had produced many experts. The Turk expert on the ring knocked out his opponent and stomped his opponent's face into the ground. He raised his arms in a provocative and boastful manner, causing the audience to scream. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on the expert he was stomping on. Is the person he defeated also a Turk? His clothes are strange too. Gu Chongqing's eyes narrowed. He clearly didn't approve of the Turk expert's actions. No, that's a saberman from the Zhao kingdom. A Turk expert, a saberman from the Zhao kingdom. This underground martial arts arena was beyond her expectations. Who were you following just now? Gu Chongqing returned to the topic at hand. Who was it that said that all generals were brainless? In Gu Jiao's eyes, Gu Chongqing's scheming was no less than Gu Yan's. He hadn't chased after her to ask, and had instead sold her information for a long time. Only after she let down her guard did he suddenly ask. Forget it, there was nothing she couldn't say. Gu Jiao said, "I think I saw old concubine Jing just now." Old concubine Jing? Gu Chongqing's eyes flashed with surprise. Why would she be here? Isn't she in the palace? Are you sure you didn't see wrong? I'm sure, Gu Jiao said. She would recognize that bad woman even if she turned into ashes. Gu Jiao continued. She was wearing a cloak and acting suspiciously. She must have snuck out of the palace. As Gu Jiao spoke, she waved her hand and pointed. She entered that room. Gu Chongqing took a look and frowned. What's wrong? Gu Jiao asked. Oh right, I forgot to ask you. What's the meaning of hanging a gourd on the door? Gu Chongqing said seriously. It means that no one is to provoke it in this arena. Gu Jiao made an oh sound and didn't take it to heart. She said, There's a gourd on your door too. How do I get it? Gu Chongqing looked coldly at Gu Jiao. You still want to do that? Be careful, or I'll tell Lulang. Gu Jiao. You win. Gu Chongqing looked at the room diagonally across. If I remember correctly, the current owner of that room seems to be an alchemist. Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. Alchemist? A doctor? Gu Chongqing thought for a bit. You could say that, but it doesn't seem accurate. Doctors heal the wounded, while alchemists only refine medicine. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully. So why is concubine Jing looking for an alchemist? Is she sick? Or is she trying to do something? Can we go stop her? Gu Chongqing rejected without thinking. Absolutely not. She has the shadow dragon guards by her side. Moreover, putting aside the dragon shadow guards, the underground martial field also has its own experts. They will not allow anyone to break the rules of the transaction in the martial field. Gu Jiao hesitated but didn't give up. Then can we catch that alchemist? Gu Chongqing shook his head. That's an alchemist from the Yan Kingdom. He's surrounded by experts, so it won't be easy to catch him. How do you know? Gu Jiao asked. Gu Chongqing said. I bought medicine from him and met his subordinates. As for what medicine he had bought, Gu Chongqing didn't say. Concubine Jing didn't stay in the Yan Kingdom's pharmacist's room for too long. She came out while the two were talking. She was covered up tightly, and even the way she walked was different from how she used to be. If Gu Jiao hadn't told Gu Chongqing that this was Concubine Jing, Gu Chongqing probably wouldn't have recognized her. The man in black next to her was probably the Dragon Shadow Guard. Gu Jiao and Gu Chongqing didn't think that they could be faster than the Dragon Shadow Guard, so they gave up on the idea of running to the palace to expose the fact that Concubine Jing wasn't there. However, Gu Jiao still went to the palace. She had someone call Eunuch Wei to the Imperial Garden. Miss Gu. Eunuch Wei was overjoyed to hear that Gu Jiao was looking for him. Why are you here? Are you here to see His Majesty? Ever since Miss Gu said that she would never return to Pure Flower's palace, His Majesty had been in low spirits for a long time. Gu Jiao shook her head. No, I'm here to see Eunuch Wei. See this servant. Eunuch Wei was flattered. Pure Flower's palace didn't suspect Concubine Jing at the moment, so Gu Jiao wasn't in a rush to say anything. I want to ask about Concubine Jing's recent condition. Didn't she encounter an assassination attempt last time? I heard that she was injured. Is she feeling better? Eunuch Wei sighed. She's still recuperating. The imperial physician said that Her Highness Concubine is getting on in years. I'm afraid that she won't be able to recover from that shock for a long time. He. Who was that old demonic woman who was walking so fast on the martial field just now? Eunuch Wei was surprised. Why is Miss Gu suddenly concerned about Her Highness Concubine? Gu Jiao's expression didn't change. I know that she doesn't have a good relationship with Great Aunt, so I'm worried that people will suspect Great Aunt. Eunuch Wei smiled. Don't worry, Miss Gu. His Majesty doesn't suspect the Empress Dowager this time. Gu Jiao naturally knew this. She nodded. That's good. If Concubine Jing's injuries are serious, I can take a look at her. Eunuch Wei was shocked again. Miss Gu, didn't you say that you won't treat anyone from Pure Flower's palace? Gu Jiao turned into a logical genius in a second. But she's already moved out of Pure Flower's palace. Eunuch Wei choked. This works too? Eunuch Wei went to report this to the emperor. The emperor thought that Gu Jiao was using this opportunity to reconcile with him, so he didn't suspect her motives at all. He chuckled. All right, since she's giving us a way out, we'll take it. Eunuch Wei. But why do I feel that Miss Gu doesn't think that way? The emperor was going to come to the nunnery for dinner tonight, so Concubine Jing had already ordered the kitchen to prepare a table full of vegetarian dishes. However, who would have thought that there would be someone else by the emperor's side? Miss Gu. Concubine Jing was startled. Esteemed Concubine Dowager. Gu Jiao greeted her. The emperor said amiably, Imperial Mother's body hasn't fully recovered, so we brought the little divine doctor over to take a look at her. Concubine Jing smiled helplessly. My body has been fine for a long time. It's all the imperial physician's fault for making your majesty worry. There's no need to trouble Miss Gu. Gu Jiao hurriedly said, It's just taking a pulse. There's no need to trouble yourself. The emperor was very satisfied with Gu Jiao's filial piety. He held Concubine Jing's hand and said, Let the little divine doctor take my mother's pulse. We can't completely trust the imperial physician's words, so we can only be at ease after the little divine doctor has taken a look. Concubine Jing couldn't refuse, so she sat down and agreed to let Gu Jiao take her pulse. Gu Jiao put 3 fingers on Concubine Jing's pulse. There were internal injuries. She didn't beat her up last time after all. Gu Jiao asked doubtfully, Did esteemed Concubine Dowager encounter another assassination attempt recently? Her veins are all broken. The emperor turned pale with fright. My mother's veins are broken? Gu Jiao said calmly. It's just a few broken veins. It's not a serious injury, but she should have spat out blood. Didn't anyone notice? The emperor suddenly remembered the night the old marquis eloped with concubine Jing. He left in a huff, and a servant came to report that concubine Jing had spat out blood. Could it be that concubine Jing's veins were broken at that time? But he didn't hear anything about her being assassinated. Concubine Jing pinched her handkerchief and said, "It's just that I hurt my veins because I'm depressed." Gu Jiao raised an eyebrow. "Oh, then, esteemed concubine, please don't damage your veins again. It's very harmful to your body." Concubine Jing's face paled. She glanced at the emperor and said, "I didn't damage my veins. It's just anger attacking my heart. And sadness." The emperor didn't think it was possible either. Why would concubine Jing do that? Was she trying to soften his heart by injuring herself? His concubine Jing was the purest and kindest person in the world. She didn't understand these schemes at all. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111297315. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 362. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with hidden meanings that can't be found online can be found here. A person could hide their cultivation, but they couldn't hide their illness. Gu Jiao felt concubine Jing's pulse and found that she was fine apart from being a little weak. In other words, her condition wasn't at the point where she needed to ask an apothecary from the Yin Kingdom for medicine. She couldn't have gone there just to chat. Gu Chongqing had said that the apothecary was a loner who never interacted with anyone except for selling medicine. Therefore, concubine Jing must have gone there to buy medicine today. Granny Kai brought in a plate of freshly cut fruits. Gu Jiao looked at her and said, "Granny Kai, you don't look well lately. Are you feeling unwell? Let me take a look at you." Granny Kai was startled. This, take a look," the emperor said to her. Granny Kai looked at concubine Jing in confusion, but the latter's expression didn't change. Granny Kai had no choice but to go over and let Gu Jiao take her pulse. To be honest, Nanny Kai's health had not been good recently. When Gu Jiao saw that there was something wrong with her and wanted to take her pulse, she was happy. But she hesitated when she remembered that Gu Jiao was one of the Empress Dowager's people. Great, now the emperor had given the order. "Granny Kai, you're overworked and have a bad temper. You're a little heaty, and your tongue is sore. I'll get you some medicine and you'll be fine." Gu Jiao turned around and opened the medicine box to take out some Bezor detoxification pills, but it didn't have any. "You're picky about your patients? You've got a temper." A gust of cold wind blew past, and the medicine box fell silent. Gu Jiao closed the box and coughed lightly. "I've run out of medicine. Don't worry, I'll write a prescription and Granny Kai can follow it." Gu Jiao wrote a prescription for clearing heatiness and handed it to Granny Kai. Looking at the messy calligraphy, Nanny Kai was so scared that her eyebrows almost escaped from her face. Gu Jiao had only seen a few of old concubine Jing's trusted aides. Gu Jiao didn't dare to say that old concubine Jing wasn't asking for the medicine for someone else. Perhaps it was for the Dragon Shadow Guards? Or perhaps it was for someone else. However, there was another possibility behind the request. The medicine that Grand Concubine Jing requested might not be used to cure people, but could be used to harm people. Gu Jiao stayed in the nunnery to have a vegetarian meal. Considering the unknown drug, Gu Jiao paid extra attention while eating. She was sure that there was no poison in the food. After the meal, Gu Jiao didn't seem to have any intention of leaving, so the emperor couldn't just leave Gu Jiao to have a private conversation with concubine Jing. After a few words of greeting, he left the nunnery with Gu Jiao. The emperor was very happy. The little divine doctor still had him in her heart. She even took his mother's pulse for him. He couldn't hide his smile as he looked at Gu Jiao. "We have a new box of..." Before he could finish his words, Gu Jiaoxiao walked away with a cold face. The emperor was speechless. Eunuch Wei said embarrassedly, "This servant will send Miss Gu off." When Gu Jiao glanced at him just now, he felt that Gu Jiao had something to say to him. The emperor didn't object. Eunuch Wei quickly followed after Gu Jiao. "Miss Gu." Gu Jiao looked around vigilantly. After making sure that no one was watching them, she said, "You have to pay extra attention to the food in Pure Flower's palace. Don't eat anything sent in by anyone outside of Pure Flower's palace. Even if it's from esteemed imperial concubine, you can't eat it." "Why is that?" Eunuch Wei asked in confusion. "It's nothing," Gu Jiao said calmly. "It's just to guard against the possibility that an assassin might poison His Majesty." Eunuch Wei laughed dryly. "Do we have to guard against esteemed imperial concubine as well?" Gu Jiao said seriously, "She's the one we have to guard against." Eunuch Wei was stunned. Gu Jiao said calmly, "She's the person His Majesty trusts the most. If someone tampers with the food she sends over, don't you think it'll be hard to guard against it?" Eunuch Wei thought about how His Majesty had eaten the date paste pastry sent over by the little nun by esteemed imperial concubine Jing's side, without another word. He broke out in cold sweat. Luckily, the date paste pastry wasn't poisonous. If it was, then wouldn't His Majesty? Eunuch Wei was scared out of his wits. He quickly promised, "This servant understands. This servant will be on guard and definitely won't let His Majesty eat anything outside of Pure Flower's palace." Gu Jiao didn't remind her grandaunt. Esteemed imperial concubine Jing's hands couldn't reach into Renshou Palace at the moment. Gu Jiao continued, "You should keep this matter to yourself. Don't tell His Majesty about it to avoid enmity." "This servant understands," Eunuch Wei said. "This servant will arrange for a carriage to send Miss Gu back." "All right." Gu Jiao sat in the carriage heading back to Jadewater Alley while Eunuch Wei returned to Pure Flower's palace. Just as he arrived at the entrance of Pure Flower's palace, he ran into Kai Momo. Kai Momo had also just arrived. She greeted him with a smile. "Eunuch Wei." Eunuch Wei smiled politely. "Kai Momo, did esteemed imperial concubine dowager send you over? Did esteemed imperial concubine dowager have any orders for you?" Kai Momo handed over the food box in her hand. "His Majesty didn't eat much during dinner just now. Esteemed imperial concubine dowager was worried that the food wasn't to His Majesty's liking, so she sent me to deliver the white fungus soup she personally made to His Majesty." Eunuch Wei took the food box and said, "Esteemed imperial concubine dowager has worked hard. She's still recuperating, so there's no need for her to keep cooking. If His Majesty finds out, he'll be worried for esteemed imperial concubine dowager." Kai Momo sighed. "I also said that, but esteemed imperial concubine dowager wouldn't listen." Eunuch Wei also knows that esteemed imperial concubine dowager only has His Majesty and Princess Ning. Since Princess Ning was married off to the Great Wall, esteemed imperial concubine dowager only has His Majesty by her side. How could she not care for His Majesty? In the past, esteemed imperial concubine dowager lived outside the palace and couldn't do as she pleased. Now that she's back, she naturally has to make up for the years of missing His Majesty. Eunuch Wei also sighed. "Even so, you still have to advise esteemed imperial concubine dowager." Kai Momo agreed. "I know I will." "Eunuch Wei, hurry up and bring the white fungus soup to His Majesty. I won't disturb you any longer. Esteemed imperial concubine dowager is still waiting for me to serve her." Eunuch Wei nodded. "Take care, Kai Momo." I almost forgot." Kai Momo walked a few steps and then turned back. She took out a bag of silver from her wide sleeve and handed it to Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei hurriedly raised his hand to stop it. "What's this for?" Kai Momo said. "It's a little token of appreciation from esteemed imperial concubine dowager. Just accept it." Eunuch Wei repeatedly refused. How can I accept esteemed imperial concubine dowager's money? Kai Momo stuffed it into his arms. Take it. If you don't, I won't be able to report to esteemed imperial concubine dowager. After Kai Momo left, Eunuch Wei took the food box to His Majesty's bedchamber. If it was in the past, he would definitely give the white fungus soup to His Majesty. But today, the advice of the little magic doctor flashed through his mind. He suddenly hesitated. How about I taste it first? Test the poison? Eunuch Wei scooped up a spoonful of white fungus soup and took a bite. After a long while he touched his chest. He was still alive, so there was nothing wrong with him. This white fungus soup should be for His Majesty, right? He walked a few steps inside. In the end, he still went to the small kitchen to get a bowl of white fungus soup from Pure Flower's palace, and sent it to His Majesty. Gu Jiao took Grand Concubine Jing's pulse, and didn't accept the consultation fee. In order to express his gratitude, His Majesty had Eunuch Wei give Gu Jiao his own calligraphy the next day. The little magic doctor's handwriting wasn't very beautiful, so His Majesty wrote a calligraphy book that very night, and had the little magic doctor copy it. He also stamped His Majesty's imperial jade seal on it. This was much more precious than the imperial brush from before. His Majesty felt that the little magic doctor would definitely like it. However, the little magic doctor's face immediately darkened when he saw the calligraphy book. What kind of enmity did she have with His Majesty? Didn't she just throw a tantrum at him? Was there a need to take revenge like this? Gu Jiao scratched her head in annoyance and punched the calligraphy book. Eunuch Wei jumped in fright. Big sis, we're back. It was Gu Xiaoshuan's voice. Gu Jiao restrained her temper in a second, and stood up to walk towards the door. Gu Xiaoshuan jumped down from the carriage with bags of various sizes. Gu Yan also jumped down. That's right, he could even jump now. This was a new carriage that His Majesty's great-uncle had bought. The coachman was one of Gu Yan's hidden guards. There was another carriage following behind the two's carriage that looked a bit unfamiliar. A middle-aged man wearing a gray robe got off the carriage. He then lifted the curtain and helped a woman wearing a white corset dress down. The woman had a graceful figure and a lithe figure. Her jade-like hands were as beautiful as jade carvings. Her clothes weren't extravagant, and she only had a simple bun on her head. The only accessory she wore was a wooden hairpin. She wore a veil that only revealed her bright and full forehead and a pair of calm and wise eyes. It's master and mistress, Gu Yan said to Gu Jiao. This was the first time that Gu Jiao had met her two younger brothers, master and mistress. She knew that one of them was Master Lu and the other was called Nan Xiang. Master Lu looked more ordinary, but Nan Xiang was a bit stunning. Her every movement exuded the aura of an aristocratic family's daughter, but she didn't lose the heroic spirit of a martial artist. The two of them came in front of Gu Jiao. Nan Xiang smiled. You must be Xiaoshan and Ayan's older sister? My name is Nan Xiang. She took Master Lu's hand. This is my husband. His surname is Lu. If you don't mind, you can call him Lu Dazhuang. Gu Jiao. The few of them entered the house. Gu Jiao introduced Master Lu, Nan Xiang and Eunuch Wei. Hello, Eunuch Wei. Nan Xiang smiled and greeted him. Eunuch Wei looked at Nan Xiang. For some reason, he felt that her eyes were a bit familiar, as if he had seen them somewhere before. Madame Yao and senior servant Fong went for a walk in the orchard and weren't at home. Little Jing Kong also went out to play. Xiao Lulang and the old chancellor were working overtime at the Hanlin Academy and the Imperial College. Gu Jiao invited them to the central room. The bags in Gu Xiaoshuan's hands were given by Master Lu and Nan Xiang. Gu Jiao had lived for 2 lifetimes and had only seen students give gifts to teachers. It was the first time that she saw a teacher give gifts to a student. Gu Xiaoshan sat next to Nan Xiang. Nan Xiang smiled at Gu Jiao and said, To be honest, I came here this time to discuss something with Miss Gu. What's the matter? Gu Jiao asked. Nan Xiang touched Gu Xiaoshuan's head and said, I like Xiaoshan so much that I want to take Xiaoshan as my adopted son. I don't know if Miss Gu will agree? Miss Gu, don't misunderstand. It's not that I don't like Ayan. It's just that Ayan has parents by his side. It's inconvenient for me to take someone else's son. I've already understood Xiaoshuan's situation. His parents aren't in the capital. Her words were tactful. What did she mean by his parents weren't in the capital? Gu Xiaoshuan's parents didn't want Gu Xiaoshan at all. When Gu Jiao took away this useless burden and bought out his relationship with the Gu family for 20 taels of silver, needless to say, Gu Xiaoshuan's parents were very happy. Nan Xiang learned about these things from Gu Yan. She felt even more sorry for Gu Xiaoshan. Gu Jiao looked at Gu Xiaoshan. To be honest, she was very surprised. She didn't expect Nan Xiang to like Gu Xiaoshan so much. Let's put it this way. If the four of them stayed in the orphanage together, Gu Xiaoshan would definitely be the last one to be adopted. Xiaoshan, what do you think? Gu Jiao decided to listen to his opinion. I'll listen to elder sister. Gu Xiaoshan said. This guy was also not enlightened. Gu Jiao changed the way she asked. Then do you like Nan Xiang and Master Lu? I like them. Gu Xiaoshan said without hesitation. Gu Jiao continued. Then in the future, if they are old and can't support themselves, are you willing to take care of them? Gu Xiaoshan puffed out his chest. A teacher for a day is a father for life. Master and mistress are like my parents. Naturally, I have to take care of them. Gu Jiao had been his elder sister for so long. This was the most eloquent speech she had heard from him. Gu Jiao almost understood what he was thinking. In fact, it was not bad to have two more people to take care of Gu Xiaoshan. Gu Jiao was happy to hear this. She nodded. Okay, listen to me. Then why don't you hurry up and pour tea for your adoptive father and mother? Gu Xiaoshan was startled. Ah. Gu Yan bumped his shoulder with his small shoulder. My elder sister agreed. This. She agreed just like that? Gu Xiaoshan was so surprised that he stuttered. In fact, he only found out today. He hadn't digested the news yet. And then he became someone else's son? No one was happier than Nan Xiang. She had been longing for Xiaoshan for a long time. Finally, she could take him back and make him her son. Eunuch Wei didn't expect to encounter such a joyous event when he came to Bai Shui Alley to deliver things. He didn't know that Gu Xiaoshuan's background was so pitiful. He suddenly felt a little sorry for Gu Xiaoshan. Come Xiaoshan, come here. He waved at Gu Xiaoshan. What? Gu Xiaoshan walked over. Eunuch Wei untied the pouch at his waist and took out a money pouch from it. He also took out a gold leaf from the money pouch. Here. Why are you giving this to me? Gu Xiaoshan didn't accept it. Eunuch Wei wanted to say, congratulations on being someone's son. But why did it sound wrong? He cleared his throat and said, auspicious, do you understand? If I ask you to accept it, then accept it. He didn't know what to say. I don't want it. Gu Xiaoshan was determined not to accept it. Eunuch Wei clicked his tongue. Oh, you child, you don't like it, right? Gu Xiaoshan stubbornly said. It's not that I don't like it, it's just that I can't accept it. My sister said that I can't casually take other people's things. Eunuch Wei stuffed it into his hand and Gu Xiaoshan pushed it into his hand. Nan Xiang walked over. What's wrong? Eunuch Wei took the opportunity to stuff the gold leaf into Gu Xiaoshuan's arms. Gu Xiaoshan took out the gold leaf and said, Eunuch Wei wants to give me this. I don't want it. Nan Xiang smiled and took the gold leaf. Just as she was about to return it to Eunuch Wei, she suddenly smelled an unusual fragrance. She frowned and put the gold leaf to the tip of her nose to smell it. What's wrong? Eunuch Wei asked. Nan Xiang's eyes flashed and smiled. This gold leaf is very unique. It's made like a real one. Eunuch Wei, do you have more? Can I take a look? Yes. It's all here. Eunuch Wei handed a bag of gold leaves that Nanny Kai gave him to Nan Xiang. Nan Xiang quietly flipped through the gold leaves in the bag and scratched with her fingertips. Oh, sorry. My fingernails are too long, and scratched Eunuch Wei's money bag. Eunuch Wei smiled. It's okay. It's just a money bag. Nan Xiang asked, does this money bag belong to Eunuch Wei? It's really beautiful. Eunuch Wei said. It was given by the master in the palace. If Madame Lu likes it, I'll ask if there's more. Nan Xiang smiled and said, that's not necessary. I broke it. I'll compensate you with a new one. Eunuch Wei said, no need. Nan Xiang insisted again and again, but Eunuch Wei still refused to accept it. It was just a broken money bag. In his eyes, it was not worth anything. Gu Jiao noticed that something was wrong and looked at Nan Xiang. Nan Xiang smiled. Miss Gu, do you have a needle and thread? I broke Eunuch Wei's money bag. I'll fix it for him. No need, there's really no need. Eunuch Wei said. Gu Jiao looked at Nan Xiang. Yes, please come with me. The two entered the east room. Gu Jiao closed the door. Did something happen? Nan Xiang took out the money bag and tore it with both hands. A pile of dried flour fragments fell out from the interlayer of the money bag. Gu Jiao picked up a piece of dried flour and sniffed it. It smells so good. What kind of flour is this? Nan Xiang said. This is not a flower. It's grass. It's a kind of herb that grows in the Yin kingdom. It's colorless and tasteless, but after soaking in the medicine, it will emit a fragrance similar to the fragrance of flowers. Gu Jiao asked, is there a problem with this kind of grass? Nan Xiang stared. There's nothing wrong with it. But after soaking it, it becomes a kind of medicine. Medicine? Gu Jiao frowned. Nan Xiang stared at Gu Jiao and said, it can make people feel good, but it can also make people feel disgusted. Did Eunuch Wei suddenly become particularly close to anyone, or particularly hate anyone? Eunuch Wei didn't. His Majesty did. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111294983. HTML Genius remembered the website address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 363. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. Gu Jiao heard from Eunuch Qin that the relationship between His Majesty and her grandaunt used to be very close, but they gradually drifted apart for some reason. Eunuch Qin himself didn't know where it started. In short, the relationship between the two became more and more tense, and Princess Ning'an was caught in the middle. After His Majesty ascended the throne, the Empress Dowager ruled from behind the curtain, and concubine Jing was sent to the nunnery. The relationship between the two was completely destroyed. Nan Xiang saw Gu Jiao's thoughtful expression and knew that she had thought of something. However, she didn't ask too much. She liked Gu Xiaoshan and was willing to become Gu Xiaoshuan's family. Naturally, she would treat Gu Jiao differently, but she wouldn't use her status as an elder to interfere with Gu Jiao's private matters. She would listen to what Gu Jiao was willing to say, but she wouldn't ask what was inconvenient for her to say. Gu Jiao continued, Martial Aunt Nan, you said that this grass is a catalyst. Does that mean that it needs to be combined with other medicines to be used? That's right. This medicine is very rare even in the Six Nations. It was originally. Nan Xiang paused and smiled. It was a knockout drug from the Tang sect. It was divided into white medicine and black medicine. At first, it was used to control disobedient people, but it was later banned by the elders of the Tang sect because its methods were too despicable. However, many people in the Six Nations coveted this prescription and stole it from the Tang sect. The Tang sect. Gu Jiao heard a new name. Nan Xiang continued, however, even with the prescription, it's not that easy to refine the medicine. As far as I know, there aren't any physicians or pharmacists in the lower nations who can make this prescription. Gu Jiao asked, Martial Aunt Nan, have you seen this prescription before? Nan Xiang sighed and shook her head. Unfortunately, I haven't. Gu Jiao nodded and asked, so, white medicine makes people like it, while black medicine makes people hate it? Nan Xiang replied, that's right. She had lived for 2 lifetimes, yet she didn't know that there was such a medicine in the world. Gu Jiao's interest was piqued. She continued to ask, "How does this work? How can I guarantee that I won't get the wrong person?" Nan Xiang smiled warmly. "As long as it's fed by hand, there won't be any mistakes." Gu Jiao immediately understood. If this speculation was true, then concubine Jing had personally fed the emperor the white medicine, and her grandaunt had personally fed the emperor the black medicine. There was no way his grandaunt would set him up like that. His grandaunt hadn't put up her guard against grand concubine Jing back then, so she must have been set up by the latter. Gu Jiao asked again, "What about the guiding drug? Are the catalysts of the black and white medicines the same?" Nan Xiang nodded with a smile. "The guiding herbs are all the same. Some people had a firm mind and were not easily swayed by drugs. At this time, they needed drugs to stimulate the effect. Of course, there was also another situation, which was that after a long time, the effects of the medicine would not be stable enough and would need to be guided in to deepen the effects. The guiding drug doesn't need to be consumed. It's enough to let people smell it from time to time." At this point in the conversation, it was easy to guess who had given the money pouch to Eunuch Wei. Gu Jiao picked up the pouch and smelled it. There was a strong sandalwood fragrance on it. It was undoubtedly sent from the nunnery. Gu Jiao weighed the pouch in her hand and said, "Mistress Nan's nose is really sharp. The sandalwood fragrance is so strong, but you can still smell the guiding drug inside." Nan Xiang smiled. "This is the same principle as how you doctors distinguish medicinal herbs. People were always very sensitive to things they were familiar with. If there was monk's hood aconitum inside, this little girl would be able to smell it through the sandalwood fragrance." Gu Jiao looked at Nan Xiang and said, "To be able to recognize this drug, it seems that Mistress Nan isn't an ordinary person." Nan Xiang smiled. "Likewise. This little girl wasn't a soft persimmon that could be bullied. She hid her abilities and didn't want others to know. Both of them were very smart and tactful. They didn't talk about private matters. It was respect and trust. They respected each other's identity and secrets. At the same time, they trusted that these secrets wouldn't hurt each other's family and themselves." From Nan Xiang's words, Gu Jiao had a new understanding of this time and space. It turned out that there was not only the Turks outside the 6 countries, but also the Tang sect. The Tang sect lived in seclusion and didn't have any contact with the 6 countries. The people in the Tang sect couldn't leave the Tang sect and couldn't step into the 6 countries. Of course, Nan Xiang and Gu Jiao talked about this drug most. No matter the black medicine or the white medicine, there was no specific antidote. It could only be made slowly disappear with the passage of time, or it could never disappear. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, "What symptoms will there be when the drug's effect disappears?" Nan Xiang shook her head. "I haven't seen the specific symptoms. I only heard that there may be a backlash, such as nightmares." What Nan Xiang didn't say was that there may be some confusion. But she hadn't seen it, so it might be nonsense. Gu Jiao thought seriously. Eunuch Wei did say that the emperor had trouble sleeping. Could it be related to this? She looked at the dried flowers on the table and said, "Can the guiding drug prevent the drug's effect from disappearing?" "In theory it can, but..." Nan Xiang touched the dried flowers on the table. "1 or 2 of the guiding drug is enough. Using so many of them can only mean that the person who was drugged is very unstable. The guiding drug's effect can't be reversed. Unless the other party is going to drug that person again." "Will it still be effective the next time?" Gu Jiao asked. Nan Xiang thought seriously. "It should be, but it's hard to say how much more." So concubine Jing did go to buy medicine yesterday. She planned to drug the emperor again because no matter how effective the drug was, it wouldn't be worse than it was now. Concubine Jing led the emperor to the nunnery for dinner last night, so that she could drug him. Unfortunately, Gu Jiao was there, so concubine Jing didn't know where to start. But concubine Jing wouldn't give up. Gu Jiao felt that she would find another chance to get close to the emperor. "I have something to do, so I'll leave first. I'll visit another day." Nan Xiang got up and left after sitting for a while. Gu Jiao and Gu Xiaoshan walked her and Master Lu to the door. Master Lu sighed when they got into the carriage. Aren't you afraid of exposing your identity by talking so much to that girl? Nan Xiang didn't care. What's there to be afraid of? We'll deal with whatever comes our way. She'll be our son's sister soon. We can't just stand by when she's in trouble. Master Lu held her hand and said earnestly, "It's not that I'm selfish, but you can't put yourself in trouble again. I don't want the thing that happened more than 10 years ago to happen again. The fight for the imperial family will be settled by the imperial family. Don't get involved in it." Nan Xiang touched her disfigured face through the veil and said with a smile, "I know." At night, the whole family came back except for little Jing Kong, who was taken to the imperial palace. They were all happy for Gu Xiaoshan when they heard that he had recognized Master Lu and Nan Xiang as his adoptive parents. The old chancellor personally cooked a table full of delicious dishes to celebrate for Gu Xiaoshan. Gu Xiaoshan was embarrassed. He was still confused. How did he become the son of his master and his mistress? Gu Yan looked at the dishes in his bowl that were almost full and said seriously, "See, I wasn't wrong. His mistress has taken a fancy to you." Gu Xiaoshan was speechless. "Is this what you mean by taking a fancy to me?" After the meal, Yi took the bowls and chopsticks to the backyard. Everyone began to do their own things. Gu Yan went to help little Jing Kong walk the chicken. He should have done it before dinner, but who told him to procrastinate? He only went out when it was dark. Gu Xiaoshan went to straighten his wood. Xiao Lulang returned to the study room. Gu Jiao was watering the vegetable garden in the front yard. Yao Shi walked over. "Jiao Jiao." And Gu Jiao looked at Yao Shi while watering. Yao Shi was holding a box in her hand. She looked nervous and perturbed. "Jiao Jiao, come here for a moment." "Okay." Gu Jiao put down the kettle and came to the stone table. Yao Shi had already sat down on a stone bench. Gu Jiao sat beside her. Yao Shi put the box on the table and gently pushed it in front of Gu Jiao. "What is this?" Gu Jiao asked strangely. Yao Shi looked expectant. "Open it and take a look." Gu Jiao raised her hand and opened the box. She found that it was filled with jewelry. They were exquisite and of high quality. "This is..." Gu Jiao did not understand Yao Shi's intention. Yao Shi calmed herself down. She gathered her courage and held Gu Jiao's hand. "This is for you." "Why?" Gu Jiao asked. Today was not a big day. Why did she give her so much jewelry? Yao Shi lowered her head and pinched the handkerchief. "I wanted to give it to you a long time ago. I was worried that you would not want it." These were not expensive jewelry. Although the quality was good, they were all given to her by her grandmother before she married. She did not know how many years had passed, but the style was old. She was not really living a poor life. It was just that the jewelry she bought outside was not as meaningful as the ones her grandmother gave her. But she did not know if her daughter would like the things she thought were meaningful. Moreover, other than making a few sets of clothes for her daughter every month, her daughter did not want money. Gu Jiao did not say a word. Yao Shi thought that she was going to refuse and quickly said, It's not worth much. It's all old jewelry." If this was not worth much, then what was worth much? Gu Jiao did not understand much about the styles of the ancient era, but she still recognized gold. A box of gold jewelry could be sold for a small residence in the capital. Gu Jiao made a sound. "It's very old." Yao Shi. It's not very old." Aya, what exactly was she saying? If it was too valuable, she was worried that she would not accept it. If it was too worthless, it would seem that the gift did not have enough weight. Yao Shi had never felt so conflicted before. Gu Jiao's lips curled into a smile. "It's beautiful. I like it a lot." This was agreeing to accept it? Yao Shi's eyes lit up. Her heart that had been in suspense all night finally relaxed. She could not help but let out a sigh of relief. In reality, rather than saying that she was worried that her daughter would refuse her gift, she was more worried that her daughter would refuse her kindness. Gu Jiao returned to the east room and took out the jewelry box one by one to admire. As a visitor from another world, she really liked these jewelry. They were all antiques. While she was admiring them, Xiao Lulang stopped in front of the door. Gu Jiao was keenly aware of the breathing outside the door. She turned her head to look at him. Her eyes sparkled. Husband. Xiao Liulong's habitual address, which didn't contain any lingering thoughts, nearly messed up his breathing. Xiao Liulang clutched his chest. His eyes swept over the jewelry on the table, and he used his sleeve to cover his right hand. What did you take? Gu Jiao's sharp eyes noticed. It's nothing. Xiao Liulang said. I still have a book that I have not finished reading. As he said this, he turned and left. Gu Jiao put down the pearl hairpin in her hand and walked forward a few steps. She grabbed Xiao Liulong's sleeve. What did you take? Let me see. Xiao Liulang lightly said. I said it's nothing. Gu Jiao did not believe him. She reached out to grab his right hand that was hidden under his sleeve. Even if he wanted to hide, how could he be Gu Jiao's opponent? Gu Jiao quickly took the red string from his hand. This was a hand-woven red string with a few small pieces of jade. The color of the jade was not very good, but the craftsmanship of the red string was exquisite. Is this for me? Gu Jiao asked. Since she had it, there was no point in denying it. Xiao Liulang gave a vague unsound. This was personally woven by an old woman on his way home from the Hanlin Academy. The moment the bright red color came into his eyes, he almost immediately thought of her. At that time he did not think too much about it. He thought that she would look good wearing it. But when he bought it home, he found that she had so many expensive jewelry. Then his shabby bracelet. Gu Jiao handed the red string and her left wrist to him. Help me put it on. Xiao Liulong's eyelashes trembled. He took the string and his fingertips accidentally touched hers. A tingling feeling went from his fingertips to the bottom of his heart. He put the red string on her slender wrist. Her jade-like wrist was accentuated by the bright red color, making her look extremely alluring. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1112699982. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.